Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We now and having one of the specialist episodes. We have the 2006 movie Black Book, directed by Paul Verhoeven.
Yes.
Did I even say the name of the podcast, the Verhoeven Effect? So
I think
yeah.
so. Yep.
Okay.
It means something. Also known as Zwart Book, which means black book
Black Book, yeah.
in Dutch.
Yeah. Yeah, the weird thing about the Dutch language sounds so close to German. It's weird and how it isn't.
Yeah. I
Because like
think it's German, but with like English, like, isn't like the grammar structure and everything like English? Like they don't have the billion masculine, feminine pronoun things and all that.
I don't know. I just know sometimes when I hear like Dutch, I feel like I can kind of like vaguely guess what they're doing by relating it to the German I know. Because so in German, Black Book would be Schwarzbuch,
Yeah.
which is very close to what is it, Schwarzbuch?
Zwart Book. Yeah. And the only reason I'm pronouncing it that way is I looked up how to pronounce it.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
didn't know, because it's spelled weird. It's got like it's like Boek, and it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
bet you there's some weird like stress on that or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Yeah, it seemed like the thing with the Dutch language, it seemed like it just had like extra K's and everything,
Yeah,
whereas the German didn't. But so it seemed that's when I knew because they don't they just switch languages in this movie. They don't tell you that they're doing
no, because all of a sudden everyone's like, why is everyone speaking English? Now I'm confused.
which I guess it'll make sense to Europeans, but to us lowly Americans, they only know one language and not
Hey,
that well.
I had a guy from Germany make me feel real good about that once at work. I was like, yeah, Americans, we don't learn other languages, and he's like, why would you? Everyone speaks to you. No one, you won. Not the British, the Americans won. You won. Everyone speaks your language. I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave that on the table. Whatever you're saying, it's cool.
Black Book came out in America May 18th, 2007. It came out in Europe in the 2006, I think like September 2006. Um, which, yeah, this is like the whole back end of Verhoeven's catalog. I don't know because I don't think I've seen anything past Invisible Man, which I didn't really like.
Yeah.
I'm not sure like when this came out. This might have been his next movie. It's also purported to be like the most expensive Dutch movie ever made, which I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Which if you don't know Paul Verhoeven, he comes from there, so that's kind of his native land where he made his movies before he came over to America to do his thing.
That's why I've always thought of the Dutch as being very sexy people. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just know Paul Verhoeven is, and I'm like, they must all just like take their shirts off over there and walk around.
Oh yeah, they had the I was talking about they had that kind of vague nude beach at the F1 race recently, and where was that? No, I can't. Why can't I remember the name of the race? F1 race in Zandvoort. That's it.
Okay.
And also Max Verstappen is Dutch,
Yeah.
and they have the Orange Army because I don't know why. It's something with orange in Dutch is a thing. I don't know if that's like something to do with the royalty or whatever, or do they have royalty?
Yeah. Yeah. They have. Was it who was the? Was it Queen Beatrix? Would be the World War II with the monarch
Huh.
there? I mean, I know really very little about them.
Yeah, yeah, me neither. I mean, I'm also confusing because it's like, wait, which one's which? Is like, are they the Dutch? Are they the Netherlands? Are they Holland? It's like, yes.
Yeah.
And then I'll confuse that with Danish and
No, it's
Dane.
something completely different, but the
Uh,
same. Different yet the same.
and they're Denmark. And
They're just the low countries. They're all below sea level.
yeah, yeah.
They're part of Europe above France, and they're sinking, and they're uh, have a very complicated system of locks and dams to
Oh
keep
yeah,
from sinking.
yeah. The most expensive, well-built system in the world.
Yeah, and they all seem like extra smart.
Oh yeah, well, like all those locks and dams are built for 10,000 year storms and floods.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
like, this will never happen. It's like, we better build for it
yeah.
anyways.
Now we can say we're covered.
um, yeah, I don't like Nathan. Do you have a history of this movie at all? Did you know it existed?
I know it existed, yeah,
Oh,
because I
okay.
like anything. There's a lot of World War II stuff I like, especially European stuff. I think me and Grayson, this might have been something we either suggested or saw individually a long time ago. Um, because I know
Is it-
Grayson, I got Grayson into like foreign films about World War II with the famous best movie to hand a 15-year-old boy, Come and See. Yeah, yeah, check this out, and it's like the most horrifying war movie ever made. He's like, oh God, Dad,
wait,
this
what?
is like silent horror.
Wait, what movie is that?
It's called Come and See.
Oh, okay.
Let me look this up. Let me make sure I get this right. Basically about the Darrellvanger division and what they did in oh where the fuck was it? Russian movie. I think it's what they did. You know what the Darrellvanger division was, right?
No, I never heard of that.
Basically like the worst Nazis you could the Norse. There's a guy named Oscar Darrellvanger. He was oh God. Okay, the first Come and See. Yeah, it's a Russian movie about the Belarus occupation.
Okay.
Let me see. I can't even know if I can spell this. It does relate to this movie. Not really, but it does. I don't know how to spell
There's Nazis.
Earl Vanger. Because I know it's got a W in it that you pronounce. There we go. Darrellvanger Brigade. 36th Waffen Grenadier Division. SS Darrellvanger. Okay, Oscar Darrellvanger was the guy who led it. He was basically I think he was a necrophiliac and an alcoholic. So always the guys the SS found. I mean, it's such an bad alcoholic, like, oh, I have to have a drink like every couple hours, or I start look like I'm having a seizure, like that kind of drunk. Um, yeah, and he was known to be yeah, he had had tendencies towards necrophilia, I guess. And they said, hey, we're going to take the worst prisoners in German prisons and give them to you, and you're basically a liquidation squad in Eastern Europe. And they did some of the worst stuff. I'm not even going to repeat it here. You can look it up. It's like, wow. I mean, everything the Germans did in World War II there was just plenty of evil to go around there. But these guys, like, it was next level. This was almost like Japanese level, like how much we hate people. So yeah, he was. It was a weird group, but yeah, that's that the movie Come and See. Was one I recommended. Or I actually have that. And I gave it to Grayson to watch, and it was a Russian movie. And I believe this one came up, and there's a lot of them on Netflix too. I told him, yeah, just watch like the European, interpretations of World War II. Those are interesting. So yeah, I do have a small history with this movie. It didn't stand out to me really, because it was kind of like equal quality of a lot of movies made around about that time period around this time.
Oh, is
So,
it
and I
better
didn't
than
know it was a
is it better
Verhoeven.
than Allied?
I would compare it closely to Allied, but a better movie than Allied.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's
Uh,
that kind of tone, that kind of double agent, triple agent betrayal within betrayal. It's like, yeah, that Allied is all that. This just does it better.
oh yeah, because this is more like just a character study almost of like
Yeah,
putting people through the ringer. That's far more interesting than what Allied was.
yeah.
Of course, director Paul Verhoeven, which is like again, I said this is like his back catalog, which I'm only aware of a couple of them. Because there's like I think it was like Bernadette. That's like the lesbian nun movie. I think that's his most recent one. And
Okay,
then
interesting.
there's some movie in between that I've heard of. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like has some horrific rape scene up front that they like. There's like the first 10 minutes of the movie, and the second 10 minutes is just like replaying that first scene. But it all has a point because it's like because then that character goes on to do like weird things to her. It's like, well, you gonna blame her? we just had her suffer through half this movie. It's like yeah, now she's gonna do weird things. I don't even know if it's a revenge movie. We'll find out eventually.
Yeah, my Paul Verhoeven, my Desert Island Verhoeven starts with Flesh and Blood, and kind of ends with Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
And I'll even throw Showgirls in there just because it's so like it's like, oh, was he trying to make a bad movie? I don't know.
Everyone's getting a payday.
Yeah.
Cinematographer is Carl Walter Linderlob. Which what else did he do? I did cinematography on Independence Day, Stargate, Universal Soldier, a lot of
Okay.
sci-fi movies.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Um,
Went on to do one of the Chronicles of Narnia movies.
okay.
Something called Kill the Irishman. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
I remember hearing about that.
Underworld, one of the Underworld movies where it's blood and werewolves and vampires and something happens.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more recent ones. Oh, yeah, it's CB4. Do you remember CB4?
Why does that sound really familiar?
That's like I don't know, like
It was
on
like in the 90s, right?
yeah, it's like a Chris Rock kind of like we're kind of making fun of rap movie because it's about a rap group and it's a comedy. Um, I've never seen it. I just remembered like the VHS of it is like burned in my mind as something we always passed in like a Blockbuster it never picked up.
Oh, okay.
And I think like Comedy Central played it like a few times. But yeah, it's just kind of like almost spoof movie of like gangster rap at the time, and has Chris Rock in it, I believe.
Yes.
Um, oh, he did the Jackal, and the Banger Sisters, Made in Manhattan. A lot of comedies in there. Like, yeah, we'll just make some money with romantic comedies.
Yeah, it's the Jackal, one of my favorite scenes with what was it, the
Jack
Bruce
Black
Willis
and
and
Bruce
Jack
Willis.
Black.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, check out the Spalling. Yeah, I'll do that. And he just like shoots the guy's arm off. I was like, son of a bitch, that worked. It's the only thing I liked about the Jackal was just the casual psychosis of Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of like cool like I guess like well if you have to murder a president with cool tech then that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
um, and then let's see here, written by Gerard Soderman. Yeah, I think Soderman and Paul Verhoeven. I think they worked together on that. Well, I'll have to look it up rather than just saying that Orange movie they did together.
Oh, they did Soldier of Orange,
Oh, that's what it
Spetters,
is. Okay.
The Fourth Man, Flesh and Blood, The Assault, The Bunker, all kinds of stuff.
So yeah, this
Yeah,
yeah
Flesh and Blood. Who can? Yeah, we remember that one.
yeah we did that
That was a. I like that movie more after we did it than before. I was like, oh, okay, a weird one.
But like he worked with this guy when he did all his Dutch movies. So like they came back together. Like kind of a 20-year hiatus between making Dutch movies. So
Yeah.
and did I break up the cast? Oh, well, the cast is written wrong. Oh well, we'll pick that up here. I mean, you're only gonna know really a few people from the cast.
Yeah, there's two of them I know for sure.
So we have Karis Van Houten, who
Yep.
like she'll probably be most recognized as she's like like the Red Sorceress in Game of Thrones or whatever.
Yeah. What's she called? The Red Lady? I forget.
Yeah, I mean she has like a character name too, but like that's yeah, but she's kind of the magic red lady.
Yeah, she's like she works for the Red God, or I don't know. Yeah.
Does she have sex with somebody and gives birth to like a smoke monster that kills somebody or something like
Yeah, she
that?
basically like I always put everything into Dune. It's like, oh yeah, you impregnate her and she gives birth to a Gola of you that goes and does weird killings. And it's like, that's kind of genetic and strange.
And she was
It's like,
also I
oh,
think
she's an axolotl tank. Great. Cool.
well she had that one where like that big night fight scene in the last season where she like lit up all the soldiers uh like
Swords.
swords with fire and then they all died.
Yeah. Didn't work, but looked cool.
But then somehow they all came back anyways. Well, all the sword fires ran out and half the people died, but they stumbled back.
Yeah, she was like oh well, she was like Tom Cruise's wife in Valkyrie too.
Oh, okay.
But she had kind of a Hollywood run after this a little bit,
Yeah.
where she did because she's like just this very striking looking woman.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Like, she's only like maybe like 10 years younger from her Game of Thrones role in this movie. And like she's pretty, but somehow she's like much more striking as an older woman than she is here.
Yeah.
I also have Sebastian Koch or Koch. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Koch.
I know him from The Lives of Others. That's I
Oh, okay.
recognized him. He was the second guy, the guy they were spying on all the time. Who the guy fell in love with his wife. This character because I recognized him immediately. It's like, oh yeah, I know that guy. He's from The Lives of Others.
And also we got Tom Hoffman, who's the other lead in this movie. I guess he worked with. I guess he was in The Fourth Man, one of Verhoeven's '80s Dutch movies. So
Yeah.
so we have Act One. We get credits that say inspired by true events, which yeah, I guess that's like this is like a conglomerate of stories from World War II rather than like one uh, like an autobiography or anything like that. So like
Yeah, it's kind of like stories of the Dutch resistance, like set during that time.
yeah. Because like I don't think other than like Hitler's exist and there's Nazis, like everybody else is just a constructed character, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Or like vaguely based on some real character. I don't know, but
I
yeah,
know. I do know this. Like the Germans kind of felt really they felt very comfortable. It wasn't like France where they were kind of like under the gun. Like they seemed a lot more comfortable in the Netherlands,
yeah,
even though they were being killed and there were people resisting them. But they seemed to like culturally, there's not like a big difference between those two countries, and so they seemed to like, oh, it's a good assignment there. So
yeah,
they were a little more relaxed. It wasn't like going to the east or to the Ostfront and
yeah.
fighting the Russians in like the land of hell and ice. It was a little more relaxed to be in the Netherlands. So there's no reason to like execute 100,000 people in a day to slake your lust or anything. So yeah, that's what I do know. But there was also some the Dutch were they were good at twisting the German occupation up in knots with like a lot of minutia and misleading things. And I can't think of anything in particular, but I know that it was almost like they got away with a lot. And a lot of it involved just like stealing from the Germans and kind of messing up the occupation. And but they were actually pretty effective when it was looked at in the long view. It's like, oh yeah, that was actually good that they did a lot more damage statistically than other more famous resistances because they kind of blended in a little bit with the Germans and then were able to undermine them slowly.
Oh, okay.
It was a lot of like, let's put sugar in the diesel fuel, like stuff like that, where it's like that's mildly annoying and nobody died, but then do a cost analysis on like all the vehicles that were destroyed because of that or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's actually a lot of damage. And if you don't have trucks and you can't move things, they can't fight effectively, which is kind of the point of a kind of a built-in resistance versus an active like we're fighting them because there's not enough of you to fight an army, but there is enough of you to really screw up their occupation.
um,
So that's Nathan's incorrect history corner.
it opens on a bus driving through the mountains. There's some dudes riding camels off to the side. It's on the bus. It says Holy Land Tours. Oh, we also get titles. It says Israel, October 1956.
Yes.
And so yeah, people hop out of the tour bus while there's a lady that like narrates the tour. She has like a loudspeaker. Which I thought she was narrating the tour, but really she's like, "All right, everybody, spread out, and then I'll call you back when we're done." A lady hears children singing at a school, and there's a teacher singing with the class. The lady, or we learned almost immediately later, is Ronnie, which I guess I should probably pull her up because I found some interesting stuff about her. I have to this up again. Oh, it's right there. Live production. It's not what we wanted. Yeah, Ronnie's played by Helena Rain, and so she was also in Valkyrie.
Yes.
But now she's a director, and I know last year she directed a movie that's kind of like seen as kind of like an almost like avant-garde, goofy horror movie called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I don't know if you heard of that.
No, that's a new one on me.
So I heard good things about that movie, and so she directed that last year. And it seems like the previously she worked again with what was her name, Von Houten or whatever. Yeah, Von Houten, Carrie Von Houten, on a movie called Instinct. But they worked together again. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting. This lady went on to be a director or is currently directing. So yeah, as far as I know, that Bodies, Bodies, Bodies movie was well received. For a horror movie. So
Yeah.
which that's usually where that's a place that's an environment you get to experiment in. So good.
Yeah, yeah. You can do a lot of experimental horror movie stuff.
Yeah, well, it's like good directors come out of horror movies because they can get a lot of bang for their buck on cheap budgets and draw in crowds. Because like you don't need an A-list star to open a horror movie. The horror movie sells itself.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't like Oppenheimer or something where it's like, yeah, you gotta do a lot of research.
Yeah, so the lady Ronnie is taking picture, which makes the teacher very mad, and she starts closing the blind. And then Ronnie asks, like, "Are you Ellis de Vries from The Hague?" And then they recognize each other. They start speaking Dutch because Ronnie says like, "I don't speak Hebrew," so they start speaking Dutch to each other, and they're like, yeah, they kind of like catch up a little bit. And then Ronnie leaves. Ellis waves goodbye to her. I'm gonna switch up because she has a different name later on. And then I'll switch again. And then like, yeah, so she waves goodbye to as they leave on the bus, and then she goes and sits by the water and seemingly cries, but it's also that's like dissolving into like rain. So you don't know. It's like, is that just a good effect or is she crying? I'm not sure. So we dissolve into a flashback to Holland, September 1944. Ellis is reading a Bible, which I wrote, I think, and then yeah, she is.
Yes.
Which I don't know if it's a thing because that's another. I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm dubious on the title "Black Book" and its importance. But do you think this could also be another black book, the Bible here?
Maybe, but that I mean, perhaps because we know Verhoeven likes to do things.
There's like a knock where it's like there's a sign that's being like pulled from a string from somewhere, and then she leaves through a secret door. Her name's Rachel Stein, for now.
Yeah.
That's her, her birth name or whatever. And then there's like some mother there, and she reminds the kids not to call her Rachel. And so it's dinner time with this family that's hiding her. The dad's kind of a rough guy, and then Ellis or Rachel here says a Christian prayer, and then the father, Mr. Timpkia, or no, how do you say it? Tepkimia, says if the Jews had listened to Jesus, we wouldn't be in all this mess now. So it's like this weird contentious thing where it's like this guy's morally hiding this woman but has contempt for her.
Yeah. I'm hiding you because I don't like the Germans because they're occupying our country and by effect want to kill you, but I'm not really like have a problem with that. I have more of a problem with them invading your country and them killing another human being. The reasons why they're killing you, I understand, but so it's kind of a weird morality.
Yeah.
Like I'm because you're literally like if the Germans found her, they just shoot the whole family. I mean they did do things like that, but.
Here they're having oatmeal, which I'm not sure what time this is. Like, is this breakfast, lunch, or dinner? I have no idea. Like, I'm assuming breakfast, but I don't know.
It could be, unless things are really weird there. Pancakes for dinner, though, not bad.
But here they're just having oatmeal, or here it's just cereal, which that's always a different thing here in America. I think, right? Because cereal means different thing. Because what they're
Well,
calling
cereal
cereal
means
here.
a grain in Europe.
Oh, okay.
Here we just call cereal as a product name.
Yeah.
It's the weird. This is why everyone's 300 pounds in America. Food. Look, it's sugar in a cube. Great.
Pour milk on
It's good for yeah. Pour animal fat on it. It's good for you. It contains whole wheat or whatever. You know, there's always that. It's gluten free. It's basically like wheat encased in sugar. But cool, thanks. Can I have another bowl? Oh, we're not going to pour it in a bowl like this. Like we're going to pour it in like a Tupperware dish. Like yeah, this is 3,000 calories, and you're going to eat 2 more times today at least.
Yeah, so they're having oatmeal. She puts some syrup in. She makes a cross out of it, which like kind of pisses off the old guy. And then she scrambles it up. Again, not sure if there's a deeper meaning here other than she's just kind of being rebellious.
I think it shows like she has a certain spirit.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, thanks, but quit being a douchebag.
Then they cut to there's like some dude on a boat. He scares like Rachel, who's listening to English music on a dock, which this is weird because it's like she was immediately in hiding and now she's just hanging out in the open. It's like
Yeah, playing music that's clearly illegal.
Yeah. Although there's a reason for that. I'm not gonna knock that. So
Yeah.
it just seems weird. It's like you're not really taking this seriously, are you? And this is kind of like near the end of the war, so I don't know. Maybe they're being complacent now. I don't know.
Yeah. The Tommies will be here soon, as they say.
There's a bomber that's wounded as it's kind of limping home, and it starts dropping bombs, which the guy says it's doing so it can climb. I don't know. Is this a German bomber or is this like a British?
I believe that
bomber?
was a Lancaster.
Okay, so that's a British one. Okay.
I believe, could be wrong, but it had kind of the square.
No, you're wrong, Nathan. The British only bombed at night. No.
It had that weird like oil drum, like the squat. The Lancaster hull looked like an oil drum that was kind of squished in the middle.
Okay.
It had it wasn't like ours where they're like smooth shapes. I think they just did what they could do to get the most bombs in something that would fly. Of course, they did build those in Canada too, so there were Canadian Lancasters also.
Oh yeah, I guess that could be them, but yeah. So it's dropping the bomb. Drops one really close to them, which I'm not sure if they're armed or if they're automatically armed when they drop them. So it misses them. But then, like a third
Couldn't
bomb...
tell you. Seems kind of indiscriminate to drop armed bombs on people. But when somebody's trying to shoot you down, maybe you don't care. You're like, yeah, just let them go. Never been in that situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, the guy says he's dropping bombs to climb, so he's not trying to kill these people here. He's like, one of the engines is out, and it's like, we need to get rid of weight now.
Yeah, we could lose 500 pounds.
And yeah, then like the third bomb they drops on the house of the people she was staying with and kills all of them.
And we assume it's never. She's like, all she says is, "Oh no, my hiding place."
Yeah. Well, that's the weird thing. She has absolutely no emotion to these people being dead. Which is why I think maybe I could be wrong.
Not those children burning alive in the rubble. You know, it's my hiding place.
Well, later on they said they found her ID in the rubble, which doesn't necessarily mean all those people died. It just means they went through the rubble and her ID was there.
Yeah. I mean, they could have all like been in town too. We don't know. Maybe they were because she didn't react to it. Because she does react to death later. So
yeah,
it's like
but it takes a real long time for her to react to death.
Yeah.
Well, I thought there was going to be a thing where it's like, oh, her family must have died horribly. That's why she has like, it doesn't
She's
like
numbed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, these people that are helping me out, like they're dead. It's like, oh well.
Yeah.
But also, she's young at this time, and sometimes in the immediate natures, young people can really bounce back from horrible things. It's like, I'll let that be a nightmare later. I want to live in the moment.
This can be a reason to drink and not work later.
So they cut to Alice is now hiding in or Rachel. She's hiding in the greenhouse and she's listening to a record that she recorded. Was this Rob? Yes, I wrote Rob brings a fresh fish in, and so she gives him a light kiss. And then they can hear a car outside and they hide, and a guy comes in looking for Rachel Stein because they found her ID in the burning house rubble. This guy's a cop from Holland. He's like trying to warn Rachel that the Germans will be coming for her, so she needs to like get out of town. Um, does this Rob guy ever come back? I think I wrote Rob later on, but I forget. Like, does this boat
Oh, he
guy?
gets killed on the. He's one of the boat guys.
Oh, he's on them with the boat. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, is he hiding as well, or is he not?
He's going with her. He doesn't have to hide. He's just
Oh.
hanging out looking for some companionship or something. I don't know what he's doing, but then he's later like, "Yeah, I'll go with you."
Okay. Um. So the cop compels them to hide, and so like they'll have to make a like a midnight hour run across the border. I'm not sure border is the right. There's like he talks about like crossing the marshes and stuff.
Well,
like
there's
that.
an occupied. There's like a Allied occupied zone they can get to,
Oh, okay.
and then because the cops like supposedly like, "Oh, I can help you," so the cop like because the cop's just like driving away, and she's like, "Wait," and it's like, "Oh, I can help you," and you need to bring money and stuff, and it meet this point, and it's like, oh, okay. Hope this guy's on the up and up because
Well, we cut to the next day, and Rob and Rachel make their way through town. Where this is like, yeah, they're not really hiding now. She even makes the point where she kind of like flashes a leg at the German shoulder soldiers.
yeah. Well, you act confident, and people will go. You can go about your business.
Yeah. She meets with a lawyer, or like family lawyer or something that owes her father a favor. I think I wrote his name. This is like, was this like Mr. Small or Smale? It's like
It's
SM,
yeah,
two A's and an L or something like that, or is it two M's? There's two letters in the extra letters in there somewhere.
yeah. They pronounce his name, but it's like we're watching it subtitled, so I'm just Mr. Small's fine. There's a way to pronounce it, but I read it and saw it, and it's like, oh, Small with an extra A and one L. Cool.
He wants to prove that she is who she is, and so she has a locket that maxes up with a photo that he has, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So she needs money to run away, so he gives her like money and jewels, which is kind of like half what she wanted. This is where you learn that her parents are still alive, but they're just hiding elsewhere. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How'd that happen? Never mind. Because that's immediately I thought her family was dead, and why she was dumb to other death is because, like, well, obviously her family was killed, but they're fine.
Yeah.
Then that cop is we cut to the cop is taking Rob and Rachel as prisoners through a German checkpoint. And then they get to where there's a bunch of Jews that are gathered together. They're going to cross over into Allied territory. Rachel's family is there, and then like everyone on the like hops onto like I wrote flat top ferry, like
Yeah. I consider it like a flat river barge.
Okay, yeah, it's basically a barge. Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
the word I was looking for. There's like not handholds; they're just kind of like loosely packed on a plank that basically floats on the water.
Yeah, pretty much. Those don't have like a deep V hull, and they're not very maneuverable because they're just designed to be wide so they can displace massive amounts of weight that'll be put on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not safe. Not safe transport.
Then we cut to night. Well, also, we have the like that her brother's like moving slowly, and like it's revealed that he had like what appendicitis surgery or what's that? Yeah, that's right.
Appendectomy. I had one of those about 8 years ago. They're fun. Everyone was like, "You're 40. You're like, why are you having this now?" I was like, "I don't know. Talk to my appendix." I thought you're supposed to have that happen when you were a kid. It's like, I don't know.
I don't know. I never had mine taken out. I never had tonsils taken out either. So
no, I never had that.
Then we cut to it's night. The family has some gingerbread, whereas here it's like, well, that doesn't look like the gingerbread I know, so that must be like a nice, cool gingerbread thing. It looked like soft and like cinnamony. So I don't know.
It's not like a hard cookie. It's not like a teeth-breaking cookie with a smiley face on it. The gingerbread man. You can't catch me.
And then a Nazi patrol boat just like lights up in the middle of the water, and then they just open fire on the boat and seemingly kill everyone. Although Rachel falls off the boat, but she also seemingly gets shot in the head, like straight into the head, and not like a
Yeah, it's like,
graze.
huh, wow, this is weird. So where does this movie go now? But we find out no, that was like somebody like I'm guessing a squib went off and it just flung on her. I don't
Yeah.
know if they planned to do that because
I
it's
think
very confusing.
they play it off as a graze, but how it looks in the shot, it's like it went straight into her fucking skull. That's how it looks like in the movie. But I think it's supposed to be a graze, like a bolt hit somebody else's skull and then like hit her sideways, because she heals from that like almost
Yeah,
immediately.
it's not really a thing later on. It's like, oh, what happened to your head, Fraulein? Oh, I banged it on a dish.
I was like, for a moment there, I was like, oh, is this going to become touching evil? Or like, this is like the bullets lodged in her brain and will slowly kill her over time? I was like, no, that's
She
not
like she can read people's minds or something.
she has no shame now.
Yeah, she can seduce any man.
But yeah, she falls off the boat and like they shoot into the water. And then, it's like, they basically show everyone dead, but then they show her like wading through the marshes. And then she watches like the Nazis steal everything from the dead Jews on the shore.
And these people were loaded too. I mean,
Oh
because
yeah,
they're like stripping bodies naked and they're finding like bars of gold, like
yeah.
just ingots of gold. It's like, wow, supposed to have all the wealth in that part of the country hidden.
So we have Act 2. It's day. There's some Nazi checkpoint. They want to see a coffin opened up, and Rachel's inside, although she has like makeup to make it look like she died of some disease.
Typhus.
Oh, okay.
Which is highly contagious, which is why the guy said it so he wouldn't open the coffin, but he did anyway because he's a good Nazi and he does his job.
So they get to the mortuary and they let her out. I wrote here's Matthias Schoenartz, who plays Jupe. I'm not sure if we see him again, but we last saw him. He was like the creepy uncle in Red Sparrow.
Okay. Okay.
Here he's just kind of a young man that's helping out. I'm not sure. Like, I think he's like one of the guys that gets captured later on, but he's more of like a third banana. I don't think he has like a lot left in this movie. Although I saw his name Jupe and like that's a weird name. But it's probably perfectly fine. There's millions of Jupes in Netherlands. Actually, I don't even know if there's millions of people in Netherlands. I'm only assuming there are. So
I don't know. People are there in there. 17 million.
Okay.
It's actually more than I thought.
Yeah, sometimes I forget how populated and condensed Europe is.
Yeah. You always think it's like, there's 3 million of them in each country. It's like, nope, it's way more than that.
Yeah, was there like 40 or 50 million people live in France?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like the EU as an economic bloc is twice the size of the U.S. Huge. But it's also not like unified in a continent with one language and one culture. And it's like, there's, then it becomes like our advantage versus theirs. And also we don't have enemies near us. They have Russia. So.
Rachel,
and sometimes each other. For 1,000 years, they were just killing each other.
Yeah. Rachel meets up with some official at a soup kitchen where he's like kind of leading the resistance or whatever. Now she's going by Ellis DeVries, which that's what I call her by now. Which I figure like that name, like, no, she's called Ellis. I figure like if they were going to do the more like feminine spin on it, her name would be Ellie, but like with an S on it or something like that. No, she's Ellis. That's how it sounds when they say it, so it's Ellis.
Yeah.
So she's dyed her hair blonde. I wrote the wrong dyed. Maybe that means something in my notes. Then we cut to, it says 5 months later. Yeah, because she's like trying to get I think he's gonna like, yeah, you'll be a secretary. But then we cut to 5 months later and she's chopping potatoes.
Yeah.
And here it's the guy's head of it. His name's Gerben. Another good weird name. I've never heard of before. So he says he has a dangerous job for her because some lady couldn't show up. So she has no idea what it is. Like they're showing him like chucking coal into that weird like contraption truck they have or whatever. So I thought it was going to be something with that, not like, and now you're a resistance fighter. But that's what it ends up being. So we cut to like them like all the resistance guys are driving up to the resistance meeting out in the, some farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. Some people seem to be communist, and then all her job is she has to pretend to be some guy's girlfriend so they'll pay less attention to them. So like that's all her set goals are, which it's like, well, obviously it's going to become more than that. So.
Yeah.
Then they cut to it's dawn. It's really cool, just like sound design and seeing all the bombers like flying at night here. It's like I think it's dawn, and then they signal a plane and it drops off. It's one of the British planes. They drop off military supplies for them. That's just like a cool looking scene.
Yeah, that is a cool scene because they're like they got a light and they're holding a book over it, and then like the plane sees that. And...
yeah, it dies real low so it can drop off. It's it's like it's like a bomb, but it's held by a parachute, and then just it's just empty on the inside with a bunch of guns and stuff. So, they're going to attack a Gestapo outpost, but then a German half truck busts through and then holds them up, and then Hans comes out and starts firing at them, and they're able to like kill all the Germans without taking. I don't think anybody dies on their side here; just all the Germans die. Which I guess I don't know if that's something.
There's no one driving the truck either. It's like, well, where's the driver? It's like that. Did that guy hop out? I just stay in the armored vehicle until the shooting was over. It's like, no, I'm the driver. This is where I stay, unless the thing bursts into flames, which they often did. Then I get out.
But I assuming like maybe like the Germans had it too well here that they weren't expecting anybody to fight back, so that's why they're unprepared to actually fight somebody. So.
Well, yeah, because they didn't have the Second Amendment back then. They couldn't fight back. Right? Because they weren't Americans, damn it.
So they take the German uniforms from their bodies, which they don't use them here. They use them later on. We cut to the train.
That must be fun. It's like, yeah, I want to take the uniform off a guy who just shot up and maybe pissed and shit in his pants. And usually that happens when you blow holes in people. Even if they didn't do that, you might have hit their intestines, which is just as bad. But yeah, give me that uniform.
Well, it's a great little bit later on when they actually bring the uniforms up is that they have the people like tailor them to like that guys that are wearing them rather than just like they magically fit everybody. It's like, no, so. That
is true. That was a good detail. It's like I shot the guy my exact height and weight, and his right leg's a little bent, just like mine. Speaking of which, I saw the weirdest thing. Speaking of a leg bent, real quick aside at work, guy at work got his knee replaced. Came back. I hadn't seen him in like 6 months. I didn't realize he was bow-legged, and he was standing there talking to me, and I was like, what'd you have done? He goes, oh, I had my knee replaced. It's like, it looks like you had your whole leg replaced. He's like, oh, no, I've been bow-legged all my life. So the side I got my knee replaced on, that leg is perfectly straight. Now the other one is like this. I'm like, what the hell are they going to do? He goes, I don't know. I'm walking real screwed up. My back hurts all the time. I'm like, that's terrible. Because I never knew his legs were that way. Until you see that. And it's like, yeah, the one they put in is a perfectly straight like knee. And it's like, oh, no, he's like wildly bow-legged. And it's like, wow. But anyway, that was really weird to see him walk away. Like, huh? It looked like it's just his whole right leg was replaced. It was so different from the left one. It's like, God, that's weird.
Yeah, they should have.
Getting old is fun.
They should have shortened that leg when they put it. So yeah, the German police are checking IDs in the train. Here, Hans and Ellis like kiss to try to throw off the Germans, but then they start checking all like the luggage and stuff like that, and then Hans wants to just like start shooting.
Yeah, which is always a good idea. Just on a train full of Germans, like, let's start. You run out the door, I'll shoot.
But then she kind of stops that, and so she plays Hans for a pervert and walks off with a suitcases full of. I thought it was bombs, but it ends up not being bombs. But it is full of guns. So.
And like a radio too, I think.
Yeah.
Which is like a dead giveaway. And when I say radio, I mean something that weighs like 80 pounds. Like this 40s tech, it's just huge.
And so she gets in a cabin with a German officer, Ludwig Muntz. Or Muntz. So she makes herself interested in his little stamp collection, which I don't know. Do you think? Would you naturally assume a stamp collector to be an evil or weird person? Like, what, how do you strike this guy immediately? Is he just an evil Nazi?
Kind of like almost like an innocent in a way, someone who like this was the best part of my childhood,
Yeah.
and I just carried it into adulthood, even though I'm like a Hauptsturmführer, which would be like a colonel in the SS Gestapo. It's like, but I still collect stamps. It's like, and shoot people and stuff like that. Or I don't shoot people. I sign orders to have people shot, but
um.
I mean, I think it just makes him as like, oh, like a young child existed here at one time who was fascinated
Okay.
by the world. So yeah, it's a nice little thing.
Yeah, because he almost
Like
had to.
if he had like an ear necklace and she had to pretend to be interested in that, that would be much darker and strange. So
Well, I guess the thing that's like interesting about this movie is you almost have to watch it twice. I didn't, but you almost have to kind of like, oh, the Nazis aren't necessarily just. Well, there's one guy. Well, there's a few people that aren't just evil Nazis, even though in movies people are just evil Nazis. Now,
yeah.
there's still plenty of evil Nazis in this movie, but they make it a bit more kind of gray and in between. That's kind of interesting. Like why I say
Well, that's the weird thing about like a lot of the Nazis that were well known that like people, because of course the stuff, because they weren't just like, the thing with the Nazis was not just like, oh, they fought a violent war. Like, well, yeah, that's every country. But the thing with the Nazis that made it insidious was they occupied places and they killed people, and they specifically like just murdered Jews for being Jews, not for any other reason, just for being Jews. And like everyone who was a part of that system has been intensively studied, like, because it's like, how are they different from us? And the real frightening conclusion is they're not.
no.
They're just people that like, this was the time and the place, and this is what they did. And because it's like, who's that guy like Heydrich? Remember him? Like he's Heydrich's been the subject of a few things. He was the guy who was killed in Anthropoid. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, watched that movie, the World War, or maybe they haven't. I don't know. The guy in Oppenheimer was in it, and there was those people were fighting. I forget which country it was in, but Heydrich was one of those people
Is
that
that in Czechoslovakia?
I think so. Yeah.
I want to say it's that, but
So anyway, he was a guy who like he was in the Navy, and he had an affair with somebody's daughter who was higher up in the Navy or whatever. He got kicked out of the Navy, and they thought, oh, his family was like, oh, his life is over. They were kind of an upper class family, and he was like he loved playing the violin, could play it like those people at Juilliard that could just and they make the violin sound amazing, those kind of people. And he was that guy, and he also liked to fight with swords, which is like okay. And then the Nazis came along, and he got involved in that, and was just known as one of the most ruthless guys under Himmler to like, yes, kill as many people as possible, but would cry like racking tears at like music and like opera and stuff. Like he was deeply affected emotionally by fine performances and stuff. And it's like, oh, this guy's insane. Like he just like killed millions of people, and like, oh, but if I hear the violin played a certain way, I just tears pour down my face. And he looked like a complete like lunatic too. I mean, you look up pictures of Heydrich, he's like, that's a scary looking guy.
oh, so you're not saying they're interlinked, where he's like he heard music and then felt the guilt of killing people. He's just like music
No.
makes him feel, killing people doesn't make him feel anything.
The thing that should make you feel the most of all, which is like putting women, children, families into furnaces. No, that's just work. However, if you play the violin in such a way that it's like, or have I forget what kind of stuff he was into, the music and all the culture they have over there. And he would
Wagner, something, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, just imagine like ladies in horned helmets, like, whoa, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
That really moved
Wagner,
him.
so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That really moved him. They were really into that. It was, and he felt it deeply. But when it's like killing millions of people like that, nope, that doesn't move my soul 1 inch. And that's really frightening, because what that means is like this guy was able to compartmentalize things in a way that should not be possible. You should not be able to kill people and feel like that fine art dries you to tears. But it was the case with many of these people. Or a lot of them were just uncultured oafs who thought they really were like fine culture, and they loved killing and stuff like that, because that's like, yeah, I'm in charge of everything. This is cool. But for guys like Heydrich, it was just a job. And after the war is over, I'm going to live in my, farm or whatever, and I'm going to be a gentleman, and I'm going to appreciate art, and I know what I did for my people, and it was right. Now, of course, they were defeated. All these guys ended up being killed, but it's like the mentality there is really frightening. It's more frightening than if they just had horns growing out of their heads. It's like, oh, they're demons from hell. This makes sense. It's like, nope, they're people just like me and you. Only they look a little weirder. All the Nazis kind of looked weird.
There was a lot of eccentric diseases back then. So
That's true.
you had to have a lot of weird surgery for, weird cysts and eye growths and
well, and the dental care sucked. I mean, yeah, it's like people are pretty symmetrical and straight nowadays, even like middle class and poor people, because you have access to dental care most of the time. Yeah, but if you didn't, then your jaw was crooked and everyone looked weird.
And advances in medicine then also allowed society to be less Spartan, where you're throwing the child with a deformed arm down a mountain. So we let them
yeah, you didn't have to leave your children to die of exposure if they were deformed, even though the Nazis were trying to bring that back.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, she appreciates Munz's stamp collection, so that when the cops come by, he's like, "Yeah, go about your day. This pretty woman likes my stamps, so don't search her bags full of weapons."
Sir, I'm about to engage in Stampy-lingus. Get out of
it. So yeah, they're leaving the train. Then she goes and like kind of continues to make an impression on Muntz as they leave the train, and then she says she hopes to see him again, which is that's not really like, that's not planned. That's not a part of her job. She just kind of like has instincts to like, well, what would I do as a resistance fighter? I guess.
Yeah, she has good spy instincts. It's like the best spy is like going to become friends with the top ranking SS guy in the city. It's like, no, that's crazy. It's like, no, that's great, because I can like get access to this guy.
She's just
because I'm also a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Like that helps. That opens a lot of doors.
Yeah, which again, it's kind of weird, because like, I mean, you read the synopsis for this movie, the way they set it up is like it's a revenge film. Like a cabaret singer is going to get revenge on the Nazis after her family is killed. It's not exactly what goes on in the movie.
That's what you think, though. It's like, I've seen this before, and it's like, maybe.
But like, if you read that synopsis and you see the scene, it's like, yeah, she's definitely gonna kill him. But that's not really. She's just kind of like rolling with the spy work here. Her intention's not necessarily to kill everyone, but she does want to, hinder the Nazis as much as she can. Then Alice goes back to Hans, who says says that Muntz is the head of the Gestapo there, and that like he's killing the resistance that they're a part of. Which actually find out he's not.
Yeah.
Then we cut to this is back at the soup kitchen. Some kids are looking for food, like just through all these interesting metal containers, which I guess used to hold like milk or something like that. I don't know if these are like pasteurization containers or something. But yeah, they find one has food in it, and then because the kids are surrounding this thing, they end up like the resistance guys in the truck with the weird chimney on it, like they end up like almost hitting the kids, and they ram it into like the side of the building, and then the kids see cabbage and they're like, oh, free cabbage. I guess because it rolls to the ground. And then as they run to get the cabbage, the weapons are revealed, and so like cops just show up out of nowhere and just beat the crap out of these guys. Well, they're also like stuck in the car cabin because like the doors are like pinned against the wall. So that they get out late to just have the cops beat the crap out of them. There's like the Kuipers or Kippers? That's the
Kuipers.
Kuipers, okay. That's
how I understood it.
That's like the business here. It says like Kuiper truck, but that's also like Mr. Kuiper's like kind of the head of the resistance in here. I think it's Tom Kuiper's his son. I can't remember.
I believe it was Tom. I always thought it was Tom.
I write it later on. I don't know who they are now when I was writing the notes. then Gerbins is about to run out and go fight the cops, but like they hold him back. Here, even like Ellis is here, so this is like just sometime later. Um, I wrote that like their cover's blown and now they're gonna make plans to flee, but that's not what happens. Like he figured like, oh, hey, that one guy's truck had a bunch of weapons on it, and now we have his son arrested. Like, why not like investigate him? But like Gerbins never gets arrested. Like the Germans don't hang around his place at all. That's the center of everything. So that's just kind of a seemingly weird inconsistency. But I don't know. But also like I guess overall, Moots is like negotiating with them through the lawyer. So I don't know. Maybe they're let that be a safe zone. I'm not sure. So that's where Gerbin just suddenly comes up with a plan to have Ellis get close to Muntz so that then they can go rescue Tom. So, and we cut to the next scene where Ellis is dyeing her pubic hair because she's like, "Well, we got to match this because she's like, I definitely need to have sex with this guy to make this work."
Yes, this is a commitment. This scene was so striking to me. I actually looked up hair coloring and techniques, 1940. Let's see. And it doesn't say like what would be available in occupied Europe, so I didn't get that granular with it because I just couldn't find it, even though I looked. However, ammonia, principal ingredient of hair dye at that time, especially to go from dark to light hair, so like black to blonde hair. Ammonia is like an oxidizer that is used to do it. That would be incredibly painful to put on your genitals. I mean, I only have like testicles to relate to, and I imagine a woman's sex parts would be a lot more sensitive to this. So putting ammonia on your genitals to change the hair coloring, so as they say, the drapes match the curtain, would be incredibly painful. And it would be more than, ow, it burns. It would be like, oh, I need an ice pack. And I don't think you're going to be ready for sex in like a couple hours. But,
Let alone 15 seconds later.
Yeah.
Well, Han comes in and he teases her. This definitely, it's like a Dutch film because they're not all been out of shape because of nudity, public nudity.
Yeah, they're not like British or American people at that time where they'll be like, oh, you don't have a penis? What's wrong? Are you deformed?
He opens the case of what I thought was bombs, but here it's insulin.
Yeah.
Which I guess I didn't realize, like, when was insulin created and how long have there been diabetics? Which I guess a long time.
1860.
Okay. Well, how long have modern vaccines been around? Oh no, not vaccines. Not vaccines. What's the stuff that antibiotics?
Antibiotics came about, I think, in the 30s.
I want to say like for something that's essential to our life was a seemingly late creation for the medical field. Like I want to say like around the early 1900s or something like that. But
yeah, I don't the antibiotics were not. I know that's why like the casualties of World War II are much different numbers between wounded and dead versus World War I, where it's like, well, a battlefield injury could be death, like not because like, oh, it was just a grazing wound with a bullet, but you were in a trench that somebody was using as a latrine for 6 months. It's like, yeah, that grazing wound just became infected with like biological waste. So, and also it's like, yeah, antibiotics played a role too, and like battlefield wounds being a lot more treatable until like the present, like Iraq war, when it's like now the level of technology is like most wounds are recoverable. It's like, but soldiers came back with like it's like, is that PTSD? It's like, well, kind of. Also, it's like their body armor protected them from the blast, but their brain rattled around in their skull. Like 20 years earlier, they just would have been dead. And so it's like, but yeah, we can heal all that injury. We can't heal brain trauma. So it's like, yeah. But yeah, that was
and psychology is tricky too. So
yeah, and well, yeah,
the other brain trauma.
That's the software, the wiring. I'm talking just the hardware, physical damage. Yeah, the software stuff is like, well, nobody knows. We don't even know how the hardware works. We know more about how the heart works and how the brain works.
What about the wetware?
Yeah.
So she talks about being a cabaret singer and then a comedian she knew was being diabetic. So, um, and then Hans and Ellis start having sex or
Well, let's
being
let's
weird and nude around each other.
well let's talk about this. This is important because she said I used to work for a comedian, and he would overdose on insulin and then have to eat chocolate real quick
Yeah.
because an insulin overdose. And the only I know some diabetics, insulin dependent diabetics, and when insulin was costing like $1,200 a month, and these guys didn't have insurance, they said that eventually, if this keeps up, they're just going to save a portion of their insulin every week and then just check out. And I'm like, you can die from insulin immediately. Of course, I'm interested in the wrong thing about. So tell me about this death from insulin, and yeah, you just go to sleep and your body just shuts down. Whether whether you don't have to be diabetic if you just take insulin in massive doses, like it'll kill you. And it's like, and these guys were saying, yeah, if I can't afford it anymore, I'm just going to save up and then just kind of check out. And I was like, really, you can die from that? Tell me. And but then they passed a rule, and insulin, became actually somewhat affordable. Because that's why Biden stole the election, so he could make insulin affordable for poor people. That's why, in case you're wondering. Nope, just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, why can't these people just get thinner? Then they would have to rely on the government to give them.
Yeah, type 1 diabetics who never had a pancreas to produce insulin, like those. Yeah, lose all the weight you want. You're not going to grow a pancreas or whatever produces insulin. I forget.
Ellis goes and meets with a lawyer again. He tells her of like her family's fate. Here she talks about. Because, it's like her family died, but she hasn't shown any emotion. And here she basically states out loud, like, I feel guilty that I'm not emotional, that basically my whole family's dead, and I don't, like, and it's like she feels something, but she doesn't, like, or, like, she's, what do you call that? She, like,
numb?
Yeah, well, she's aware of the idea. It's like, oh, yeah, my family died, but I guess there's more pressing matters, and I'm kind of mad that I don't have any emotions about it. So.
Yeah, she's kind of just swept up into the moment. It's like she's
Yeah.
never really had time to sit and reflect.
Yeah.
Because she's always had to lie. Because whether she's cutting potatoes or dating SS, officers, she's always had to lie.
So I think she meets the lawyer here. I think they showed earlier when he opened up the safe that he had stamps in there, right? So she gets stamps here. Isn't that what she gets
Yes.
here? Okay.
Yes.
Because the stamps that Moons is looking for is like, what they're like East Indian Trading Company stamps or whatever, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. They're basically like Queen Beatrix stamps, but from East India or something.
Okay. So Ellis goes to meet with Moons at the Gestapo station. She spots Gerben's son being dragged in. Moons comes down to get her, and she's brought up. So they go to his office. So she brought some stamps to impress Moons. So she just gives them to him as a gift. And he's like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, I just found them lying around." Here she's served chocolate that came from like the resistant shipments that they picked up.
Yeah, because right on it says in like English, it's like Cadbury chocolate ration. It's a big bar. It's like a big one too. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's like a Willy Wonka bar.
Yeah. Is there a golden ticket inside?
I figured there's like not a secretary, like some soldier comes in and there's like some urgency about something. I thought he was going somewhere else, but apparently the urgency is about like this gathering they're gonna have, and so Ellis gets invited to go to this gathering as Munski's guest. So we cut to the gathering. There's some guy up front. Is this the Oberhoffen or whatever his name is? He's talking about like Hitler freeing Europe and stuff like that. The bald guy.
Obersturmfuhrer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they start singing some song, which like she doesn't.
By the way, it's important to know those ranks are like made up SS ranks. The German army actually has regular ranks.
Oh, okay.
So if you hear those kind of ranks, those are SS. That's not the regular army because they have whole different ranks.
Oh, okay.
Angry German historians will point that out to you.
Is that like
Um,
difference between SS and Wehrmacht or something? Is that
yes, it's very important to realize that the Wehrmacht were actual soldiers and
okay?
not, even though, like, well, yeah, but they participated in massacres too. It's like, not so much. It's like, all right, I get you.
They had a bit of pause that gave them moral high ground. They still continued, but the stutter step was showed the humanity.
Oh, they hated the SS though, because the SS guys, first of all, they strutted around because the SS was like a throwback to like that early Germanic history that like Hitler and Himmler and all the head Nazis were into. And it's like, so that weird like goose stepping and strutting march. It's like the regular German army didn't do that. That was just the SS, and a lot of the SS guys were seen as like peacocks, who was like, yeah, go fight the Russians, and they'd run the other way. But then some of them were not. Some of them were like true psychopaths who loved like killing people with tanks or whatever, and they were good
well,
at it.
well, there's always this thing about like it's more this way with modern military, and I'm not sure how it always exists, but you have like dress uniforms that are kind of just for occasions that you're not going to be fighting in these, and then you have like
Yeah,
your
yeah,
you know your what do they call that? You know, like your fighting uniforms, which are more practical and lighter weight.
yeah,
And but like in World War I, like people basically fought in like dress uniforms.
yeah. And they had like just like just weird things with giant epaulets and really high collars where you
Yeah.
couldn't turn your head hardly, and it's like, that doesn't seem like something to run around a battlefield on.
um, well, I know there was I forget the name of the book. It was about like a German soldier in World War I. He would talk about like, you know, basically getting medals pinned on his uniform because it was both his battle uniform and his dress uniform, and that's
Yeah.
kind of where the tradition came from to separate those things. At least I think so, or maybe it's always been a tradition, but I'm not sure. But
You had a lot of uniforms
oh yeah,
because you had the one like everyone sees from the recruiting posters.
yeah,
Like that was the super formal one.
yeah. That's the dress blues. That's where you're going to like formal events or whenever you see, you know, those guys that are like flipping around rifles and stuff. They're usually in those uniforms where it's any like ceremonial stuff. That's what you're wearing, your the dress blues.
And then you had another one that looked like it was straight out of World War II.
Yeah, that's the what are those called? Those alphas. Those are the green ones
Yeah.
where it has like kind of like the red chevrons and then it's mostly green and it has like black buttons and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like that looks straight out of like the World War II stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had your like just your practical ones, which
Yeah.
like those seemed elaborate too in a way.
Oh yeah, fireproof, rip proof. Well, not rip proof, but like it had rip stop material on it. So if it had a rip, it wouldn't rip the whole pant leg. It just rip a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You weren't supposed to wear like normal, like you know what you considered like normal underwear. You're meant to wear cotton underwear, and sometimes they had to check you for that, which is always weird. Because there's like, oh, we're helping you because if you have polyester underwear on, it's gonna melt to you when you get caught in a fire. It's like, well, thanks.
Ooh, God, I never thought of that. A nice plastic fire on your testicles.
Yeah, like that's why it's the because usually they're made out of 100% cotton. So not that they weren't fireproof, although they had a little fire resistance on it, but they wouldn't burn and melt to you. That was the
Yeah, they didn't turn into napalm, so it was nice that way.
Let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, so they go to the gathering. They're all singing a song that Alice doesn't know, and then here's Alice notices the piano player, and it's one of the evil Nazis that killed her family on the boat.
Yeah.
Whereas here he's just playing the piano, and he's all goofy and stuff, and it's like, oh
Yeah, he's having a good time. He's another. He's kind of the opposite of Heydrich. He's not serious about it. He's here for the. I'm here for the show tunes. Dun 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 dun. Sing with me, and you know, like a week earlier, he's just gunning people down on a boat. It's like, take the bars of gold.
Which this sparks a reaction in her, and basically suddenly this is where she feels guilt and the loss of her family, and she has to run and go throw up in the bathroom. So,
yeah.
Which I noticed when I'm not sure if that was a real bathroom or something mocked up, but like when she pulls the thing, you can see this you can see where it's leaking. The back of the toilet is leaking as she pulls the thing. So it's like,
oh yeah, I did. Yeah, okay.
Um, yeah, because why don't we need to do that anymore? Have those giant, have the water up so high? They just because they're
Oh,
not
because we have
necessary.
water pressure. We have positive water pressure.
Oh, okay.
We still have it. It's just the tank fills. I forget it's how it's engineered because it's like we have the stop valve in the because the reason your whole house doesn't smell like an open sewer is because your toilet like fills up with water again and
Yeah.
closes that valve. But I don't think back then they had that check valve built in the bottom, so it
Okay.
took a lot of pressure to force it down through the U trap, and then there was just water in there to keep the stench out. But I don't think it had that trap valve in it that the modern ones do.
Oh,
Or I could be completely full of shit.
okay.
But I think that's the reason why, because we just have better water pressure and better ways to seal it.
uh,
Specifically in the United States, they might still be doing that in Europe for all I know.
yeah, probably. I don't know.
Because
Cause
sometimes I always
I
think of Europe as being like they're 20 years ahead of us because they seem smarter than us. And then you hear it's like, no, actually, their electrical grid sucks. They don't have air conditioning and they don't have heating and cooling and they don't have refrigerators like you do, except in Germany, which is identical to America. And it's like, huh, I wonder why that is. Maybe we occupied the country for 50 years. I don't know.
well,
Yeah,
also, also maybe a lot of Germany got destroyed at the end of the war, and they had to build new stuff. And, whereas, like a lot of what
no,
those
I've
problems.
been told by people that live, like people even that lived in the UK for years, that said if they wanted to go to America but couldn't, they would go to Germany because it's like, oh, the streets, everything looks the same. As a matter of fact, a little more organized maybe than we have here everywhere, but it's like, yeah, the streets, the ice, the refrigeration, everything. It's like, yeah, it's exactly like America.
Oh, okay. Well,
Um,
I'm just suggesting like why they're kind of behind the times and stuff is that they have all these old buildings that they're keeping around and retrofitting them is like not.
yeah,
Yeah, this building wasn't designed to have air conditioning, so we're doing the best we can.
yeah, there's that too. There was definitely a lot of that, but yeah, I know like someone had a fairly nice house in the UK and their water heater went out and it's like, yeah, I can barely take a shower and like I'm out of hot water. Can we get like a, just like your standard US like 40-50 gallon water heater? And they laughed like, you got to get a special permit for that. It's like, what kind of water heater can I get? And it's literally like something a guy could carry into the house. It's like, what is it? Can I get 3 of those? Like, no, we can't do it that way. It's like they
well,
just don't they just don't heat water like that
well,
there.
they still have to have like separate water. We have like a cold fountain and a hot fountain for everything, right? Because they have like different water sources for different things.
I don't know if that's still going on. It might.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't. I only know secondhand from people that lived in those places because to me they always seem like it's like, yeah, they got to be like better than us. It's like, no, it's actually worse. Like America's better for infrastructure for things like that than anyone else in the world. It's like, oh, really? I always hear that we're terrible. It's like, well, yeah, but consider the source on that. It's like that's wishful thinking a lot of times. It's like we spend a lot of money on this crap. Oh yeah, that's true.
um.
I guess the one thing that's really different is the electricity. It's like we're so much safer here,
Yeah, yeah, but
and the Japanese are even safer than us. They liked what we did, and they took it to the next level. It's even more redundantly safe. Like a no one can kill themselves by throwing a toaster in the bathtub in Japan. Like you can still die from that here if you have it plugged into. You got to run an extension cord now and get it out of the bathroom. Get it on one that doesn't have a cutoff in it, but Japan, all the sockets have cutoffs on them.
um.
But if you do that in the UK, you'll literally, it's like, oh, you're not just committing suicide, you're being cremated too. Because that's the thing I heard that people are freaked out the most about. Like, you can run a hair dryer in the bathroom in the US. It's like, yeah, why not? It's like, oh, it'd kill us. We couldn't have it. Yeah, because they're running like 220 or something to the wall.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, because you need less infrastructure, like the kind of the higher the voltage you use commonly or whatever.
Oh, there's no cutoffs to it. Like we have redundant. We have cutoffs in the house, in the basement, out to the street. Because out to the street, you can get up to like you can run 240 into your house if you pay for it. If you're running like welders and shit in your garage, I don't know who's doing that, but you can. But yeah, over there, that's running to the house, and there's not a lot of cutoffs in them.
I don't know if you ever seen a video like that really the plug they have in Britain that's like really big and has the three prongs.
Yeah, the
Like,
plug and twist. Yeah.
yeah, you should look up a video on that because that's really interestingly engineered in a way to be safety. Because that's basically like what they do instead of like doing all this stuff to make the grid safe. They just have these safe plugs essentially. They're
Well,
huge, but they're really cleverly designed.
well, I know in like I think is it Australia? My Australian listeners can tell me. I think there's like switches on all the plugs.
Okay.
And there the thing is like you plug it in and you turn it and it like positively grounds it to the house and then you turn it on with a switch. But most people have a wooden stick with a rubber dinghy on the end of it, so it like hits the switch. Because if that fails, you'll just die. It just run straight through you. Like you're the ground now. I heard something about that. Maybe they're not even doing that anymore, but it's like, huh.
Um,
Because I know their power grid there is real crazy because they have like two power sources. So to run it efficiently, they have to run like super high power into it. Because I think they have a dam and some other system, and like that's the whole country, and it's run across miles in a big halo around this giant desert of death that's the middle. It's like, oh, okay, never thought of it that way.
um, yeah, the only other time I recognize those tall toilet or the toilet where the sink the tank's really up high was like in Godfather. They had because that's where they hid the gun.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
in New York, so that would
yeah.
come from the same era of infrastructure.
I don't know. Did you ever use one of those toilets or ever see one
I've
of those?
never used one of those toilets that I know of that I can
Okay.
remember.
Yeah.
But I've mostly lived in the Midwest and some on the East Coast. So
Yeah. Well, I don't. I mean, like I mean, I've literally used a rotary phone on a landline before, which seems like, oh, how old are you? It's like, well, I was just at the tail end of you could still do that.
yeah, yeah, I wasn't being retro. It's called being cheap. It's like this is the phone we have. It's
Well, no,
been here
wait.
since the 40s.
No, I don't. Well, I mean, sometimes there was a neighbor lady that would watch us, and she had a rotary phone, and she was an old person at the time. So,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
just
those phones were great. They never stopped working. Have you ever taken one of those apart?
yeah, I think so.
It's nuts. It's like it weighs 50 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's like cloth. It looks like it was lovingly wrapped by hand by someone in Elgin, Illinois. It's like, oh, this is cool.
Well, those were like the '50s ones or whatever, and then you also got like those Lassie ones that were still like the hold one up to your head. That's even different because even the one on Lassie, there's no rotary phone. They just like pick it up and they're connected to a an operator, and they like, can you connect me to this?
Yeah, give me Tuscarora 259. And don't listen into the conversation, you weird operator. Yes, I'm screwing around on my husband, and no, it's none of your business. It's like, do you want to get a party line where like anyone can pick it up and listen on the block, but you can all call each other? It's like, this is a privacy nightmare. Privacy was actually less common back then than now.
Or when they started automating the operator stuff, and like those contraptions are bizarre and really interesting.
Oh, the switch rooms
Yeah.
where it's like, here comes a phone call, click, click, click. Click. Oh, that's weird. That's like one call. There's thousands of these things. Click, click. I learned about those in my Cold War readings because the East German system, back when Germany merged again, the East Germans just exclusively had that system, and so they had to maintain it for a while just to keep it going. And they were trying to prosecute someone who was, I forget, someone was running a crime ring in Germany, and so they had to bring someone in that knew how to break into those old switch type phones. And it was someone from the Cold War. I think he worked for the CIA or the British intelligence. It's like, oh yeah, we can do this. And he was like hooking up, like alligator clips. And it's like, oh, okay, here you go. Yeah. Now we need to record this. And the guy has like a digital recorder. And it's like, well, how do we record that? So he's just pressing the earpiece into the recorder. And they like had to admit that as evidence in court that this guy was a criminal. But yeah, totally off subject. But yeah, that's cool.
Oh, Germans.
Yeah.
She gets out of the bathroom after throwing up, after finally feeling guilt after a while. So she goes to sing because that's what her job used to be. So they want her to sing a song called Lola, which she doesn't know for a bit, but then she gets into it, and then she has to like play off the evil piano player Nazi, or like they're kind of doing like a vaudeville routine together.
Okay.
um,
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. Okay. So they're doing like a
almost like a call and
Babylon Berlin type
yeah,
like
yeah.
music act. That's a TV show on Netflix. Kind of cool.
um, what's this? Oh, this is also where like Ronnie comes in and basically like almost acts like a stripper for the audience or whatever. Even though she's sleeping with the evil Nazi guy Gunther, but here she kind of like plays up for everybody because that's kind of her thing. She's like, look, I'm a hot lady and I'm fun. Don't kill me.
Yeah. Please don't shoot me or be too rough with me, because
But then Alice makes her play to sleep with Muntz. So they cut to Muntz's place. They start having sex, and then she goes down for oral sex, and he noticed that the roots of her hair are black, and then this is where he suspects that she might be Jewish. And then she like rolls with it, making him touch her body and asking, "Is like, is this Jewish? Is this Jewish?"
this is when we're getting into like, oh yeah, this is a Paul Verhoeven movie.
yeah. No qualms about nudity and stuff like that.
Well, this is what I call. I have a name for this. I call this practical nudity, because it's like it's people being nude and in a sexual situation, but entirely unawkward. It's
Yeah.
like, put your hand here on my breast. Okay, touch my genitals here. And it's like, but it's like just like commands. It's like, no, we're proving something with this. I'm not awkward. I'm not being like a coquettish woman. Like, no, don't touch me there. It's like, and that's a weird. And Verhoeven does that a lot of practical nudity. It's like,
Yeah.
touch this, feel that, look into my eyes, and it's like that must be a European thing. 'Cause that seems practical nudities doesn't work out well in the English language. It's really awkward.
Yeah.
Like, no, touch me here. Whenever anyone's acting like this in an English movie, they're speaking with a German accent, because that's kind of what that like, mechanical sex.
And he sees her blonde pubic hair, and that kind of eases him. It's like, maybe she's not Jewish and a spy and all that. Although his instincts are totally correct.
Well, and I'm starting at this point. I start to wonder, like, is this guy stupid, or is he really playing a long game?
Yeah.
And later it turns out it's like, no, he's not stupid. He didn't get this job. He always had his suspicions, but his lust and his wanting to go along with it kind of overrode his common sense.
Yeah.
Was like, yeah, this isn't what it seems. But it kind of builds. Like, it's not right now, but later it does.
Alice goes to use the bathroom, and she runs into Ronnie. she's just taking a piss, and it's like, come on in. We're gonna hang out in the bathroom together.
Yeah.
And then evil Gunther shows up naked and drunk. Which he almost starts to assault Ellis, but then like Ronnie's like, no. I do that to you. Like, let's go away.
Yeah, what does she say? It's like this is for the Hauptmannführer or something like that.
Alice goes back to Muntz's room, and you can hear like planes fly overhead. We find out that Muntz's wife and children were killed in Germany during a bombing raid by the British. Like they were all in a bomb bunker, and then a bomb struck the bunker and killed everybody. So, because it was like, oh, you're married, you're just having an affair, and he's like, no, all my wife and children are dead, so it's okay.
Yeah, they kind of like bond over. It's like it's tough not having anyone.
Yeah.
And of course, she has to be like, well, yeah, because of you, asshole. But this is why I think Muntz is always in on it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is, no matter what this is someone I have so much in common. This is the only kind of person I have this much in common with that I can have sex with. So it's like, therefore, we relate with each other.
Well, he even talks about like basically how he's disappointed in Germany because Hitler promised an Allied bomb would never hit the soil. And like, not only did it hit the soil, it killed his entire family, and he's still got to like be toe of the party line. So
and literally the skies are just full day and night of the Allied bombers hitting our soil. So it's this is like late war. We're like 3 months from the end.
Which that could be part of his whole thing, where it's like he's not fully engaged in it because he knows it's like, well, this is the end. So Yeah, I'm gonna take this cushy job in the Netherlands where there's pretty people that don't fight so hard.
Yeah. Like, oh, speak a language like adjacent enough to mine. Like, well, okay.
um, let's see here. Then we cut to Gunther's interrogating Tim, Gerben's son. They start drowning him in the sink and kick him in the balls. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that'll get a confession out of you.
They'll tell you anything you want to hear. It's just, whatever you want him to agree to. That's what he's going to do.
And then Alice is now working as a secretary for the Gestapo. It's just Ronnie and her, and then they got to do all the secretary duty. Like, we got to make 15 copies of everything. And
yeah, run down to the Ditto machine, which is like right next to the interrogation room for some.
Then like this would show off that Ronnie has a bunch of jewelry, and this is like, oh, that's all the jewelry they stole from the Jews on the boat that they killed. It's like, okay,
yeah.
And here they got Ellis has to copy up a forced confession from Tim, and because he's confessing to basically being a terrorist, like that means like, oh, well, now we got to execute him. It's like,
yeah.
Ellis meets the lawyer in the elevator, like Mr. Small, who gives, like, here you don't like, well, what side is he on or whatever, but he gives her a microphone. It's like, oh, he's a part of the resistance then.
Yeah.
And he says it's Tim's microphone, so I don't know what that means. Like, did he get it from Tim?
Yeah, I thought that was a weird line too. Is like, is this lost in translation? Is like, is this Tim is giving you this microphone to use, and it became somehow in subtitles Tim's microphone? Because like, oh, is that for the resistance or just like Tim, individually?
Yeah, or maybe he made the microphone. I don't know.
I think it was a British microphone.
Oh, okay.
So I think that was said at some point later.
Oh, okay.
And by microphone and spy microphone, we're talking about something roughly the size of your fist with some kind of battery attachment on it. So.
Oh no, it doesn't have battery. It has like alligator clips to get the battery from the light in the painting.
That's right. Yeah, they are clipping into the power. That would make more sense. Because I think the batteries back then were good for like an hour.
Yeah. Gunther wants to hurry up the execution of the 3 resistance guy, and then Muntz holds it off because like, well, you don't know why now, but basically it's like he's making deals with the local resistance to try to keep the peace.
Even though it's never shown that he's doing that.
Yeah, they talk about like, oh, they're having these meetings all the time, but it never happens.
Yeah.
Well, we're not shown it. It happens. We're not shown it. And like, Mr. Small is like the go-between. Like, Small's going to Gerben, and then he's going back to Muntz, and then that's the go-between.
Yeah, under the auspice of like he's the lawyer for any people that they capture as terrorists, even though he can't do anything to help them. It's like, I'm their lawyer. It's like, oh, this guy's moving information around.
Then Elsa runs into the to Muntz's office to hook up the microphone on a painting. Who's that? Is that like Goebbels' painting or something? I forget who.
That's Himmler.
Himmler, okay.
Yeah, like I said, the guy looks like the chicken farmer.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's a famous Gustav Rakatos line. It's like, yeah, all those German guys, they look like Himmler with those chicken farmer eyes. Because Himmler was a failed chicken farmer. So
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she got to know some basic. Yeah. So she got it has a light on it that's plugged in the wall, and so that powers the microphone, and she hides that in the painting. She puts that back up, and then Muntz comes in, and it's like under the guise, oh, she's prepping for the Fuhrer's birthday party. She's making succulents that have Nazi flags in them and stuff.
Yes, the weird Nazi flag flowers. It's like, that's strange.
And then we cut to, she gets back to like home, and then she like sees bodies, which I guess is a mortuary, so that makes sense. But she's just kind of, they show it for a moment. It's like, which I'm not even sure if that's like, what those bodies are, or who, or let's have just like resistance fighters or something. I don't know. But they also seem like skin and bones too, so I don't know if that's another thing. Then she hears moaning, and then she goes downstairs, and it's recordings of Gunther having sex with Ronnie. Well, I guess it's not recordings; it's live. And Ronnie and Gunther are having sex in Muntz's office. And then then someone else shows up in the recording. It's the Dutch cop, and this is where you figure out like, oh, he's been selling out the Jewish people under the guise that he's protecting them and setting them up to be ambushed by Gunther so they can rob all the Jewish people, and that's why they make it's like, well, you're gonna need a lot of money to survive at least a year, so make sure you have a lot of money on you when you get on this ferry. And so when they kill them, it's like, that's a lot of money. They got all they could.
Which I totally forgot about this guy until it came around, and then I almost like, oh wow, this movie's like really weird. It's like that's like that guy, because this movie was like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And we're like an hour and 30 or 20 minutes in when this is revealed. It's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, okay, so it was in fact an ambush. It wasn't just we happened to find these people on the river. Which made sense because they were on a giant like attack boat, but the engine wasn't running. They just turned the light on. It's like they must have known where to be, but I never put that together. They weren't just like patrolling where you'd hear like, wah, you know. No, they were just there, like knew where to be. So yeah.
So now there's a subplot to kidnap Van Geen. That's the Dutch cop that sold him out. And Gerben and the Small are trying to make a truce between the resistance and the Gestapo. Then we cut to like here's they're trying to capture Van Geen. Hans like tries to chloroform Van Geen, and like they think he's passing out, and so like they kind of let up on like holding him down, and that's where he fights back and like beats the shit out of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I like this is one of my favorite parts of the movie because of the realism.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if you know these guys are coming after you and they know what you've done, you're gonna fight like a lunatic to the death because they're just going to capture you and kill you. So it's like you might as well just fight like a madman. And he does. Like he beats the hell out. He's like stomping their feet, throwing like roundhouses that completely knock the guy off his feet. It's like, yeah, it's probably how you'd have to do it.
And then as he starts to run away, then it becomes a firefight. Van Geen gets a shot. One of the resistance guys gets shot, and then Van Geen gets shot. Hans gives chase, and he just gets a crap beaten out even further by Van Geen, who just knocks him down and starts like stomping him. And then Theo, who's like
he's the guy's getting like stomped in the head by a boot or like a dress shoe or something. Yeah. It's like, oh, this guy's not doing good.
And then Ellis and like Theo like run up. Theo's like the big Christian of the group, and he can't shoot the guy. But then Van Geen like uses a swear, but like I can't
calls
remember
him a son of a whore or something.
Well, he like takes God's name in vain or something like that, and then that gives him permission to kill the guy.
Or, yeah, he uses that because he's like blasphemer. He's like screaming it as he's shooting.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, okay.
Theo's probably the weirdest fucking person in this whole movie, and that's against evil Nazis.
Yeah.
Then we have alcohol surgery where everyone's swigging rum before they take a bullet out of this guy.
Well, this is where they figure out that the chloroform was like expired like 3 years earlier, because they tried chloroform on him and he seems to pass out for a second, and then as soon as he sticks like the knife in him to cut the bullet out, he's immediately like up and screaming, and it's like, oh, this expired, like in 1941, which would have been 3 years earlier, and so. It's like, well, looks like it's gin then, and then everyone's drinking, including the doctor.
Theo thinks he's going to hell, so he's all making a big deal about that. German's mad because Van Geen's death will probably result in the resistance guy being executed, because like they're not keeping, it's like, well, death broke out in the middle of, town, so we can't have that.
Yeah, we're not doing our job well. It's better kill more people just to make a point.
So there's kind of a line of people. It's like Hans, like, I'll turn myself in so they'll kill me instead of them and stuff like that. It's like a line of people about ready to self-sacrifice to no means.
Everyone's the I am Spartacus moment. Yeah, it's like I will sacrifice myself. No, me.
But
me.
But then Small kind of like gets everybody's attention. Is like, we're not doing that. Like, God damn it, have some faith in yourselves. Which is kind of weird when he's like, essentially betraying them all along. So I don't know, it's like Small is a bit more complicated than what you think. So
I always thought the guy was a creep from the first time he showed up in the movie, but then he does and says things like this occasionally. It's like, okay, maybe he's just kind of that's his personality, but he's actually one of the good guys.
Yeah.
And so that's what keeps you guessing about him. It's like obviously bad guy, and then he does things. It's like, damn it. And then he gets towards the end, and it's like, he fooled me again.
Then we cut to Alice is having sex with Muntz. Muntz is suspicious of Alice and holds a gun on her. And then she asks for a
Well, and
kiss.
he thinks he's got his like a blanket over him, and the gun is poking up, but you can't see it, so you think it's like it's a
He's just
boner.
getting he's just getting an erection, but
She's like, "What do we have here?" And she pulls it back, and it's like a Walther
yeah.
9mm. It's like, uh oh, I'm
Um,
hard, but in a different way. I'm hardened against your charms.
well, she asked for a kiss, and then that seems to quell him for the moment. But it seems like, it's like, oh no, he doesn't. He's completely suspicious of her. He's just like
He's known all along.
Yeah. Then we cut to it's the next day in the office, and Gunther's like put under the spotlight when he's suspected of killing Jews, which isn't the problem. The problem is he's not giving the valuables to the Nazis.
Yeah. It's like keeping valuables from Jews is punishable by death. That's the what's the guy's name?
Oberfuhrer or whatever, something like that.
Obergruppenführer,
Yeah.
Kottner.
So the inspector, and also Gunther here's like disheveled and seemed like he's hungover. His collar's unbuttoned, so he doesn't seem
He's
like
not
a great...
looking very Teutonic today.
So the inspector wants him to open the safe. There's nothing incriminating inside. They even make a point where it's like, it seems like the last thing he pulls out was like, well, obviously all the jewelry's going to be in here, and that's just like champagne, which I can't remember. Is that for like when they win the war or something, or what? What did he say?
Yeah, it's like a medal and then some champagne. And he's like, "This was my first battle in the '30s, like when we won." And of course, everyone's like chagrined. It's like, oh, it's his soldier's honor. This poor alcoholic man. We've attacked his honor.
But then Gunther turns things around on Muntz.
Yeah, he pulls out the Uno reverse card and immediately accuses Muntz of like, he's dealing with the resistance. He's refusing to execute people. And then, of course, again, Kautner is like, this too is punishable by execution. It's like, this guy can't wait to execute his own people. Like, I can't wait to shoot Germans.
Yeah, so then Muntz gets arrested, and Gunther's totally fine.
Yeah.
And now he's like going to be put to death for negotiating with terrorists. Then we cut to the resistance is like ready to raid the Gestapo. Ellis wants them to break out Muntz as well, which is an interesting reversal of like, oh, we're gonna save the Nazis now.
Let's talk about real quick about Muntz's speech after the gun boner, where he does tell Ellis. I believe it's after that. It's like, oh, you showed up with the stamps I want. It's I knew like something wasn't right. I'm not stupid. It's just
everything was going my way. All of a sudden, there's like no way this is real. This is all.
Yeah. So this guy's like a lot smarter than what you think. He's just like he's so sad and alone. It's like, well, I'm willing to be lied to because it's better than the truth or whatever. So
yeah.
You actually come to like Muntz a little bit. It's like, this sympathetic SS man.
Yeah, there's a real turnaround because what you see is like, well, he's not part of the robbing Jews or killing. Well, probably incidentally part of killing Jews, or directly. I don't know.
he just passes out the Cadbury ration chocolate that he stole from the underground.
I mean, here he was putting a gun to a Jewish person's head, but didn't pull the trigger. So.
Well, also more because she was a spy instead of being Jewish. Like, it's like, you're actually like, it's a different thing.
But yeah, he's not trying to execute he's trying to work with the not work with them, but like keep the peace rather. So yeah, he's clearly a different kind of German compared to the rest of them here. Let's see here. They're preparing for the. Oh yeah, so yeah, Ellis wants them to break Muntz out as well, which is Hans is just kind of like, all right, whatever. Then we cut to there's another gathering, and Ellis leads Ronnie. Oh, they're in the bathroom, and then basically Ellis leads Ronnie on that she's working for the resistance, which is like she doesn't directly say it, but then Ronnie just puts it all together and then believes it to be true, and then she doesn't dissuade her from that whatsoever. Because also
Well, because
Ronnie's
Ronnie's like when because at this point like the war is like winding down.
yeah
It's like when the British get here, it's like they're gonna like we're gonna be drugged through the streets as like Nazi whores like
yeah
that's and Ellis is like, no, that's like I know, trust me, I know people. It's not going to be that way, and she's like almost relieved. Ronnie is, but Ronnie's also like the ultimate survivor woman, and she's
yeah
like, good, that sounds nice. However, I have other plans. And you think at first is like, oh, she's going to betray her.
yeah
Doesn't happen because wait, you go back to the beginning of the movie. It's like, well, no, she didn't plunge a knife into her chest when she showed up at the kibbutz. So
yeah
something different must have happened. But and it
yeah
does, it pays off. But it's like, okay, cool. That's what I like about like the subtlety of some of the acting in this. It's
yeah
like the look in their eyes is like, you go with that, but I think I'm gonna might go a different direction, which is basically the same direction I've always gone in. Just I'm gonna switch guys. So yeah.
Well, also in the beginning, like, oh, I'm forgetting history here. Like, what's the Hague again?
It's like a city in the Netherlands, I think.
Is that what's going on here? Well, you're always saying that phrase, "What we're gonna hang him in the Hague" or something like that, or something. Or what's the phrase?
Yeah, that's like the I think that's the capital. Or no, it's Rotterdam.
Like, is this where they like had those trials of the Germans and then executed them afterwards, or what the hell? I'm forgetting everything about history right now.
I think the Hague is like the traditional I think it's like a capital, a provincial capital, and it's also where oh, what is that called? What's that the World Court, the IGSC was incorporated there. I think after World War II.
Okay.
I think so. But that's
Hey,
like yeah, because when you go to the Hague, that's like war crimes. So they
okay.
must have done the original war crimes after World War II were done there, and it's like that's the like the world capital of like oh if you commit war crimes you go here to be because wasn't Slobodan Milosevic like tried in the Hague for
I
stuff
don't
he
know.
did in Serbia? I think so,
Huh.
in Croatia or something. I don't know.
Anyway, so like in the beginning of the movie, she says like, "Remember me from the Hague." I thought that meant like a trial, and she was a witness there or something like that.
No, it's a place too.
Oh, okay.
I don't know exactly because I think Rotterdam's the actual capital. I think the Hague's like the new like we got New York, we got Washington D.C.
Yeah.
One is the political capital of America. The other is like the actual like everyone goes to this place. Like everyone doesn't go to Washington D.C. because it's hot and in the South and it kind of looks like Rome, but everyone goes to New York. That's when people think of America. That's what they think of is New York or Los Angeles, or Detroit. No, I'm kidding. Or maybe they do now. I don't know. They think the whole country's Detroit. And really it's actually kind of becoming that way, but yeah, anyway.
Well, no, Florida. Florida's the new Detroit.
florida's
um,
Florida's just a hot loony bin. That's all that is.
uh, Ellis like sneaks down into like the boiler room to open up a grate outside so the resistance guys can make in. They make it. The resistance guys make it through a checkpoint, which I thought they would have the half track here, but they don't. They just have a normal like truck.
Yeah, I was hoping to see the half track. I like the half tracks.
um. So yeah, they get in through that grate that Ellis opened up. Like she's gone at this point, but like they're getting. They have to pull out a torch to open up the other door from the outside.
I do like it was like quite the girl power scene when she like just grabs a crowbar and splits a lock. It's like, wow, this chick is strong. That's all the cutting potatoes earlier. That was her wheel from Conan the Barbarian. It was cutting those potatoes. It's like, that's why she could break a lock with a crowbar.
Well, there's a
Because
bit
if
where
you've never done that before, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm dealing with like modern metals. I don't know what metals were like in the 40s. Maybe it was like soft iron. You could do it, but breaking a log with a crowbar is
Oh, it's
tough.
a boiler room. Maybe it got too wet and a lot of rust on it.
Yeah, it could be. It was just like a cool like girl Wonder Woman scene where she's like,
Well,
like
then,
yeah, okay, that happens.
then immediately she has to like, oh no, there's coal on my feet, and she has to put her foot in the toilet to wash it off.
Yeah, that was weird. It was like, oh, is this more of this weird Verhoeven like feminine like dehumanization, or is this like practical solutions to problems?
Yeah.
I don't know.
um, So we cut to Alice is like singing for the crowd. Gunther like crowds her, which you don't know if it's like for a purpose or if it's just his thing. Um,
Now he seems more forward with her. He's like, "No, you're next."
yeah, yeah.
Now that the Hauptmann Führer is gone, it's like you're gonna have weird big gut sex with me, and I can't wait. And she's dreading it.
Yeah, because he's keeping her close and uncomfortably so. Then we cut to the resistance is like opened up all the cells and releasing all the prisoners and they're all beaten to hell.
Yeah, I mean these guys are like, "Come on out," and they like fall into them. They have to
Yeah.
carry them because they've literally been hooked up to car batteries for like a month. It's like, yeah, these guys aren't doing too well.
Then they open up one more cell, and then there's a Nazi guy inside, and he starts shooting. Then Nazis just appear from all the other cells and start firing. So it's like, oh, this is a setup.
It's very Dirty Dozen scene. Like
Yeah.
everyone's running out of a corridor with a Smizer, just firing in a small room. It's like, aren't you worried about ricochets at all? How about not going full auto in the stone room? It may be good idea, but
Yeah, nobody can hear ever again.
yeah, never. It's like, well, you're giving me orders. I can't hear what you're saying. It's like, why not? Because a machine gun just went off in my head. That's never really considered in movies. Everyone's like speaking in low tones right after they like empty a magazine into some guy. It's like, no, you'd be writing it down on a piece of paper. I'll never hear these tones again. Yeah, it's ringing in my ear. It's like from the movie Children of Men. It's really, that means it's dying in that tonal range. It's like, no one's doing that.
Then the crowd upstairs hears the firing, and so they get worried and disperse correctly.
Yeah, it's like
So-
what anyone would do if that happened.
Which makes you think is like, well, is this a setup? So there's like kind of like it seems like not everybody's informed what's going on here. So,
Or some of the people are so drunk and or arrogant, they're like, whatever it is, we will handle it. It's like, oh yeah, good luck with that, dude. There's machine guns going off everywhere. You go charge into that. I'm gonna go sit in the back of the Mercedes limousine while you figure it out.
so basically everyone but Hans dies from the resistance, but Theo's still in the truck, so that he hops in the truck and they break through the gate and escape.
Yeah.
Then Gunther
And that
grabs-
truck is just filled with, I'm just raked with machine gun fire.
Yeah.
And it just keeps on going. It's like, that's a hell of a truck.
Gunther grabs Ellis because he says that he wants her to write something, but really it's another reason.
Yeah.
Hans goes back to tell Geb. What's his name? I wrote his name wrong here. What the hell's his name? Gerben.
Oh yeah.
I wrote Grebner here. I'm like, that's not right. Yeah. So it basically tells him like, hey, your son's dead, and everyone else in the resistance is dead.
I always think of like there's a Kuiper's a liqueur. It's like a minty liqueur. You use it to mix with like a vermouth type thing. So that's when I always think of like, oh yeah, Mr. Liqueur. His name is Gerben Kuiper, the liqueur. So, yeah.
So then they hear Gunther through the microphone tap, and here he reveals to Ellis. He reveals the microphone to Ellis's surprise, but then he's selling it like it's like becomes like a radio play.
Yeah,
he's like,
this was cool.
Like, oh, thanks for selling the resistance out to us, Miss Ellis DeVries, and then they're all like, oh, she sold us out. We need to kill her immediately. And then the German guys in the room like cover her mouth so she can't say anything to the contrary.
He's perfectly on cue. He delivers this line when she can still talk. And he snaps his fingers, and they go over and immediately clamp their paws over her mouth, and she's not screaming effectively or anything. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't happen in real life. But and then it gets even more ridiculous.
And then he pantomimes footsteps to make it seem like she's walking over to take the microphone out and stuff like that. And then he says something to Gebner or
Would you like to say something to your friends? And the guy's hand over her mouth, it sounds like she's laughing.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, that wouldn't happen in real life. Like, no, she would bite his hand and scream, like, run, they're coming for you. But, doesn't work with the story.
So yeah, then he undoes the microphone, and now basically everyone wants Ellis dead. The Germans, the resistance, everyone wants her dead.
She has no allies anymore.
So that being the end of Act 2, because everyone wants her dead.
Yeah.
So Act 3, Alice is thrown in a cell.
And it just pans in on her, and you hear that voice. It's like, how the Duke boys gonna get out of this now? And then it's like Act 3, she's thrown into the cell, but it doesn't go that way. It would be weird if it did.
Then we cut to Ronnie's like entertaining people, where she's having like champagne poured over her as she like kind of strips and like has her breast naked, so like everyone. And like I don't think anyone's fondling her, but it's kind of like everyone seems to.
Yeah,
be
everyone gets
enjoying
their towels out, like, oh, I'm so wet. Pat me off. It's really like erotic suggestivism, and
Yeah. But it's all a distraction because then Ronnie winks at a German soldier that we have no idea what that means.
yeah,
but it's like, oh, she's one of the good ones then.
yeah.
And so this German guy sneaks down to the boiler room.
It's almost like you can touch my boobs later if you do. Like, risk your life.
And then we cut to Muntz and the soldier get Ellis out of the cell, and they make a break for it. And so they're able to make it out. Like the soldier like drives out, and they're like kind of hiding in the back. It was kind of a fun
Under a
little
blanket.
Yeah, and one
Blanket
of the German,
fort.
yeah, well, yeah, one of the German guys like looks in with a flashlight, and then like the German soldier guy's like, "Hey, can I help with anything?" He's like, "Get the fuck out of here!" It's like, "Hey, you don't have to be you don't have to be nasty about it. I'm just trying to help here." Then they cut to it's like I don't know, like the next day or night. They're hiding on a boat together. Moons
Yeah.
and Alice. She's doing the dishes, and like they're making plans to join with the resistance to try to like make their plea that like no, this is what really want to happen. And then all of a sudden, there's a radio broadcast, and the war is over and Germany has surrendered.
Yep.
Which this is an interesting moment because it's like, oh, the war's over, all the troubles are done. It's like, nope.
Nope.
Cut to day. Gunther.
It's VE Day. Everyone gets a clap all at once.
We cut to the next day. Gunther's taking a patrol boat, and all stolen. He's running off with all stolen goods. They take the boat out. They take down the Nazi flag, and then the engine goes out. Gunther goes to investigate. Well, his lackey goes first. That guy gets killed. Gunther goes to investigate. Hans kills him and takes all the stuff. Then, meanwhile, the Canadians are liberating the Netherlands. Ella spots Ronnie, who has like won the charms of a Canadian soldier, so that's how she's not being like strung up somewhere and having her head shaved.
Yep.
Because she
Like
met
I said, Ronnie had her own plan.
And even Alice is like, "How'd this happen?" It's like, "I just walked up to him and said hello," like, or something like that.
She was liberated by they were being liberated by the PAM. Actually, they weren't called that then. They became the Canadian Army, but they were known as the Permanent Active Militia.
Oh, okay.
Right up until like 1940. It was funny because the Canadian Army was so tiny before World War II. It was like really, really small. And it was basically like the Boy Scouts, like we're just getting together and having a meeting at somebody's house. It's like we're the Army of Canada because they didn't need one. The police force was 10 times the size of their army until World War II. And they were interestingly like under the command of the British because they're part of the Commonwealth. But they also kind of did their own things too. But that's why Canadians are, because I think Brad Pitt played a Canadian in Allies.
Oh, okay.
Because it was set kind of in a place where the Canadians were the officers in charge, because they were under the British. They're a Commonwealth nation. So they were like the muscle for the British in a lot of places.
Yeah,
which is weird because you don't think of the Canadians as even having an army. It's like no, they do, and they actually were pretty good in World War II.
It was Scotty was on Juno Beach.
Yeah, he was actually Canadian, not Scottish, and he also had a finger shot off in World War II. Because if you watch this, because once you know that and you watch the Star Trek episodes, they tried to film it so you wouldn't notice it. Yeah. But you notice it if you know what to look for. It's like, oh yeah, his hand definitely got shot up.
Oh yeah, so Rodney escaped the fate because you see other Nazi sympathizers are being publicly humiliated here.
And you
Months.
knew her new boyfriend was Canadian, even though he had a British uniform on, because he had that big, weird, toothy smile. It's like no British guy had teeth that big in World War II. So it's like that guy's a Canadian.
um, then we got to Munson Ellis meet Small. She's accusing him of like double crossing them the whole time.
Yep.
He has a black book, and he says that he can't say anything until he's in front of the Canadians.
Yep.
So this is a weird late, like, hey, what does the title Black Book mean? And this is
Now we
essentially
know.
what it means. I don't know. That's
Well, I
why.
like Smalls has this thing where it's like, I can't tell you everything, but I will tell you, yes, me and my wife helped the Jews, in this area, but then we came to a different conclusion, and I'm not going to say anything until the Canadian intelligence people get here or whatever.
Yeah.
He says something weird like that, and it's like, what the hell? Because I thought that like some guys are going to show up with a maple leaf and like all truth will be revealed.
Yeah.
It's like what the conclusion did these people come to, and it's like, that's weird. It
But then
doesn't ever pay. I figured it'd be something like really shallow, like, well, you saw all the gold bars they had on them. You see that Jews were the scourge of your. Like, I thought they would say something like that. It's like, let's make this guy even more evil. But it's like, no, it never really, all it is it's like it's a way to get the black book into Ellis's hand.
Yeah.
That's it. But I was hoping for like some psychotic reveal moment.
Well,
It's
he's
like, this is
walking.
where all the evil makes sense.
Well, he walks out of the Black Book, and so does his wife. Walks with him, and then like they are violently killed off screen.
Well,
like
kind of off screen, but yes, you see like his
His
head
wi-
is like in two parts on the floor.
Yeah,
Almost.
it's all weird. Yeah, it's all caved in. His wife walks back. She's still alive because she's squirting blood everywhere from some wounds. So,
Yeah, she took one to the heart for sure.
um, so Moons chases after the guy, the unknown assassin, only to like the irony here. He's chasing after like the real bad guy, and the resistance fighters see not an SS Nazi. It's like get him, so they do. they
Nope.
Yeah, they don't even care what he's doing. He's like, stop him. It's like, they don't know he's trying to do good. um, and then they see her, and then she gets captured as well. Then we cut to Muntz is brought before the Canadians. Here, Kottner's here as like a liaison for the Canadians, and he's selling out Muntz as being like a communist sympathizer. And then Kottner tries to use bureaucracy to get the Canadians to execute Muntz. Basically, like, oh, this execution's order here. You need to let us kill him. And then we cut to a firing squad, and Muntz is executed by German now prisoners.
Well, it was like the double firing squad because they handed the German soldiers rifles and they each handed them one bullet to shoot this guy, and they also had guys in the background waiting with their own rifles. Like, if these guns go any way but towards that guy, we're just gonna kill every one of them. And it's like, oh, that's a weird. It's very quick and subtle, but it's like, would they give Germans guns and bullets? Like, yeah, they would if they had their own armed guys in a ring. And I'll tell you from there was a book I read called Total War, which talked about like the end of World War II and how the Germans like just self-destructed, and they because Germany didn't have to be razed to the ground at the end, at least not in the the Allied sector, the U.S., British, Canadian, French Allied sector. It didn't have to be razed to the ground like it was, but because the Germans decided to fight total war, that it was. And one of the problems they had when we finally defeated them in negotiating with the Germans was the Germans were like, we still want to kill the people in our army that betrayed us, and it was the only way we could get them to stop fighting. It's like, fine, you can shoot your own people. Okay, cool. So that means we don't have to do it. But the fighting against us must stop. So this bureaucratic loophole that the what's the guy's
Kottner.
Muntz that's used against Muntz to kill him. Like that really happened.
Huh.
I don't know if it happened in the way it's portrayed in this movie, but it was kind of like look, we have to get the fighting to stop. Because we knew, I mean, we were ready. Us and the Russians were ready to betray each other almost as soon as like Hitler was dead. It's like, we got to start betraying each other now. We knew that. The Russians knew that. So we started signing agreements with some of the German generals like, yeah, you can kill your own deserters and people, whatever you want to. Just stop shooting at us. And so this actually became a thing that was used to like for revenge killings.
Huh.
Within the mainly within the Wehrmacht, not so much within the SS, because those guys were just like everyone wants to kill them. So it was kind of weird. In this movie, it was different, but it's like that's not like historical. That's not historically inaccurate that went on.
Huh.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, I mean, the book's called Total War. I forget who wrote it, but it basically said like the defeat of Germany in World War II wouldn't have been so bad if the Nazis weren't lunatics, where they're just like, no, burn the fields, scorched earth all the way to Berlin. And it's like, yeah, it didn't have to go that way.
Then we
And
cut. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
well, we cut to Alice is in jail. Now she's being forced to go to like a church or something. People are like banging on stuff, yelling at them. She has to grab the shit bucket.
Mm.
uh,
Yeah, the weirdest scene I've ever seen in a movie in a long time. That's not a David Lynch movie is about to come up.
like all the people like in charge, everyone they're like drunk and they're making everyone strip. Um, she drops off the shit bucket into like the shit cistern where everybody drops it
Yes.
off, which like, well, that's gonna be a thing.
Yes, the giant like chain crane supported just cistern of feces that's like why would you dump it in a trench somewhere and put lye on top of it? You wouldn't put it in this giant bucket, but I figured I knew it was
Yeah,
coming. It's like
yeah. So
someone's getting the shit dunked.
they're drunk. They make everyone strip. Alice starts to resist, and then she just gets beaten up, and then they drop the shit bucket on her. So it's just ultimate
To
humiliation.
show her the price of defying. This is like the Dutch revenge against collaborators,
Yeah,
essentially. Yes.
yeah. So yeah. These are all the Nazi sympathizers, presumably. Um,
Originally portrayed as communists at some point. Yeah, there was a thing. They didn't make it clear in this movie, but I know after the liberation of the Netherlands, a lot of excesses were taken against Nazi collaborators, and it was portrayed as being like, well, this is communist, like reprisals against people that collaborated with the Nazis. Normal, good Dutch people, capitalists, are not a part of this, and this needs to be rooted out. And they actually sent the British in to fight like communist partisans in the Netherlands, saying that like, no, these are like killers and they're killing their own people and they're spreading dissent in the post occupation Netherlands, and that's how we got the communists out of these parts of Europe. Essentially, this is also a real thing that happened. But
but then Hans shows up and stops the abuse, and he says they're gonna fire everyone. He's like something like I don't know, like a general or something.
like a colonel, I think, in the Dutch army, the reformed Dutch army.
Yeah. So Hans gets her out of there. Small's black book is noted. Um,
As part of her belongings.
yeah.
And he just kind of looks at it casually, like, yeah, he looks through it and he hands it to her, like, yeah, no big deal.
Then Hans brings her to like a medical office, and he has the
She's
value.
had the de-shitting shower.
Yeah.
She dressed in nice clothes. Her hair is flowing again. You can just have like a metric ton of shit dumped on her. So yeah, she's been de-shitted at some point.
Yeah. Deep.
It's a hot, hot shower to get rid of that.
You gotta shave your head for that, man.
Yeah, that's not that's going into the roots for sure.
Um. So yeah, he has all the valuables that he took off of Gunther that Gunther stole. Hans tells her of Munz's fate, so she's like starts shaking and has an unrelenting feeling of dread because it's like nothing can go right for me. Everything has to go wrong.
Well, like all
Everyone
the grief she's supposed to feel from
yeah.
the beginning of the movie, but watching her family like blown apart by machine gun fire and everything else literally all the stuff that's happened, which would make most people psychotic at this point, she now feels it all at once. It
Yeah.
all like the tip of the pyramid is the death of Muntz, and it's like, okay, now I'm gonna start shaking.
And then Hans gives her some drugs to calm her down, and she starts passing out. And Just realize, oh, she was given, oh, she like you see her have her point of view of like fading vision in and out. It's like, oh, she was given insulin, and oh, now she's expected to die, and like, and then like I was like, oh, why is Hans trying to kill her? And he walks out to the balcony to a cheering crowd,
Yeah.
and then Alice like grabs her purse and. Yeah, I think it's her purse. She starts wolfing down chocolate, so this is where it comes in. It's like, oh, she knew the counteraction to the insulin overdose.
Yeah, see, it all pays off because it's a weird story, and she's like, "I need the Willy Wonka golden ticket to live,"
And then like
which
almost
is dumb because he could have just grabbed the morphine out of that cabinet and
yeah.
just like, "There's no, you're not going to counteract that with chocolate." You know, it's that. Good night, but it doesn't happen.
And then she almost like comically walks out on the balcony and just kind of strolls off of the balcony.
Oh yeah,
Of
she
the
does like a total John Cleese, like oh, what is it, like not Faulty Towers, but the Monty Python, like just walks off the balcony like Monty Cleese style. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the crowd catches her, and then Hans starts giving chase, but Alice gets away. Then they cut to the Canadian Army, and the Dutch are like digging up, well, and also German soldiers, they're prisoners, are digging up mass graves of the people they executed. They find Tim's body for Gerben. Then Elle shows up, and then Gerben wants to kill her, obviously, because he still thinks that she betrayed her. And then here's where Ellis reveals the contents of the Black Book, and it's like Small had been selling out the Jews all the time, and also Hans was a part of it because he got arrested by the Germans. He was a doctor, and then he made a deal with the Germans, and then this whole setup to like steal gold from the Jews. This was the whole like play the whole time, which this is like an interesting like third act twist where it's like, oh, I didn't know this was a whodunit the whole time.
Yeah, I was like, well, it's got to be some deeper meaning here. It's like, no, not really.
No, it's a mystery to solve. It's like, well, I just thought it was general bad things happen to war and the movie's over. But no, they got to solve a mystery, which I guess, I don't know, it's an interesting third act twist, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, this is when I really started to appreciate this movie because up to this point, it's all boilerplate. Like I've seen some version of this before.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is good. I mean, I liked it. But yeah, this weird like final act is like, this is great.
There's also where they're switching almost all the accents happen in this movie because they're talking to a Canadian like colonel or something, and so they're talking in English to him, and then they're talking to Gerben in Dutch, and then they're yelling at the German soldiers in German. It's like,
yeah,
um,
which is like an authentic twist.
Yeah.
Because if it was like, if this was an American movie, everyone would be talking like British accented,
yeah.
You know, English. Because all Nazis speak with a British accent, you know, in our minds, because you know we don't actually do it in German. So.
But yeah, this is where they ultimately revealed like the not really the ultimate villain of the movie, but like all along, it's Hans has been a villain to them rather than like the resistance fighter they thought he was.
Yeah. And you find out he's not even a surgeon. He's like a different kind of doctor.
Oh, okay.
Because remember, he is like getting the bullet out of the guy. It seemed kind of rough, and he did the appendix on you know, Ellis's brother.
Yeah.
The appendicitis, and it's like, yeah, he's not even a surgeon. You know, that came up at the last minute. It's like, huh. Okay.
Yeah, because that's where they figure out the book. It's like, oh, a doctor in the book. It talks about like a doctor did the surgery, and it's like, oh, that's where it's like, oh, that's Hans. Then we cut to Gerben takes the bodies home, and then here they find Hans's Jeep and realize that he swapped it with the hearse. And so they grab the Jeep and give chase after the hearse where they think it's going. They pull over the hearse. They knock out the driver. Like they jump in the box where Hans is hiding in a coffin, and she like jump. They both like jump on top of the coffin, and like they screw down some screws so he can't like.
Yeah, I love this scene because it's like the slow thumb screws of death. It's like because they're just like turning screws for a long time.
Yeah.
It's like these are fine ththreaded screws, and they're just like trying to hold this coffin shut. It's like we got to get these thumb screws down.
And then Gerben like tops in the front. He starts driving away, but he's still in the back, and there's still like this little cross thing that they can get air.
Yeah, it has secret air vents that you can't see. And so she takes off her family necklace, which also is like a Leatherman tool because it has like a flathead screw thing. and she screws the crucifix down.
Yeah.
So
Well,
now there's no air.
he's also he
Oh
was
yeah, yeah.
trying to bribe her by poking money and jewels through there, and even like she can see it's like her parents like, oh, that's my mom's necklace, but then
Yeah.
she shoves that all back in and then like uses the pendant to screw down the cross.
Which is why, because I would take the money out and then like screw the pendant. And it's like, no, you're not going to buy me. You're still going to die, but I'm going to go buy some like, rum or something afterwards. No,
yeah,
she
so
pushes the money back in, which is a great scene because you see him inside,
yeah.
like trying to push the money out. The money's coming back in, and she's using the Leatherman family necklace to screw the crucifix air vent down, which is the final stab in the heart of Christianity for Verhoeven's movie about see the Christ. It smothers us all at the cross or whatever,
The Jews nailed the cross.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, it's multi-dimensional. See the Jew putting the cross down to kill the good Christian man inside or what, it's like, wow.
Well, you see him like, yeah, they have the light going out on the inside of the coffin, so he's like screaming in darkness now.
It's a great scene. It's like the worst way to die ever.
They park the hearse like by the water, and you can hear Hans like suffocating in the background.
Yeah, they're just like chilling out, like, well, we'll just, because I thought like, oh, the coffin's going into the water or something.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I
something like
thought.
this is gonna happen.
Which
like,
presumably that's what happens anyways, but they don't show that.
Oh no, because she like all the money's in there, and
Yeah,
that's what starts.
Yeah,
the
but they
kibbutz in the. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I thought they said like this money doesn't belong to anybody, so I thought eventually they're just gonna throw that coffin in the water. They just never show it.
Oh no, because there's I'll just go to the end right now. There's a sign at the kibbutz that says at the gate that this was funded with money recovered from the Jews killed during the war.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
So I'm assuming she was
Okay.
like showed up with this coffin full of money in Israel and it's like, hey, yeah, this was my family and I want to start this,
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they have a conversation like who the money belongs to. It's like, well, it belongs to the dead. So I just assumed like after this happened, they just shoved the coffin into the water and didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, but it's more like the real middle finger to the Nazis is like, no, this funds the founding of Israel, the only Jewish state that exists in the world. It's like that's like the ultimate FU to the Nazis. It's like, nope, it's actually a nation run by Jews. And
but yeah, eventually Hans goes quiet, and they said like, "Oh, thank God!" Eventually, which I
yeah,
guess like
finally, it's this guy suffocated.
which I thought like, yeah, it went too quick, and that's just kind of for money stuff because there's even like stuff in the trivia that's like it would take someone 5 hours to suffocate in a coffin. It's like, well, it's a movie. We're not gonna wait 5 hours to watch this guy die.
Yeah, but this guy's a doctor, so he knows how he's gonna die, and so maybe he's. I mean, yeah, in the real world, she would have just stuck a pistol like up near the top of the crucifix and pulled the trigger, because that would have been like, yeah, you're dead. Have fun in hell, Goodbye.
And then here at the shore, her and Gerben talk a bit and try to just like, what did this all mean? What was it all for? And it's like, oh, nothing really. And then Ellis throws a rock in the water, and then that kind of like merges back to the present where she's in Israel in 1956. That's where we left her originally.
Yeah.
And then Ellis's husband and 2 children like greet her, and they get up and they go back home. And as they enter a checkpoint, you can hear explosions off in the distance, and like soldiers are like preparing to fight. And then we cut to credits.
Yeah, it's like, Rachel's struggle never ends.
Yeah.
Now they're fighting the Israelis in the Suez crisis. Like, I guess that was the only war that Israel was involved in 1956. It doesn't say in the movie what it was.
Yeah, I didn't look it up, so I didn't know.
No, I only know that from like, because the wars in Israel are amazing and fascinating to read books about. So, but I know 56 was the Suez crisis, but that was them invading Egypt, not vice versa. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what was going on. There's always been a lot of shooting in Israel. It's one of those places. It's like a shooting place, which is why I have some of their best guns. Make of course they need a shotgun that fires 15 rounds.
So yeah, I'm not sure if this is like has a deep like sub commentary. This isn't like a B movie with like with like a what do you call that, subtext or anything. I figure this is just a well done drama with interesting character development.
Yeah, it's kind of to American audiences, I think it's sort of an unknown like history.
Yeah.
'Cause especially like World War II. Because when you think World War II, it's like what movies come to mind? Saving Private Ryan, all the movies from the 50s and 60s made about World War II. This is told from there's no Americans in this movie at all.
No.
It's so it doesn't have that perspective. And it's kind of like it's a history of
Yeah, this isn't just necessarily about triumphing over evil. It's just like, people are bad and good, and it's just all about circumstance, and a lot of bad things happen to good people, and a lot of bad things happen to bad people. It's all just
yeah, it's kind of like, well, I lived through this. This is the story. I lived
Yeah.
through this, and what did I do? I became a teacher in Israel. Because I didn't want to wait around Europe for the next people to decide to kill us all. So it's like I went to Israel to become a teacher. That was my story. And I met Ronnie, who was presumably not a Jew, but just another survivor who I had something, like the main character had something in common with. But yeah, it wasn't like one of these clear things like, and we fought our path to victory. It's like, no, I survived and didn't die when almost everyone around me did. Like me and Ronnie, those are the only people that made it. And the leader of the Stalinist leader of the resistance cell, who I'm assuming from what I know about, post World War II anti-communist activities, did not live a long, happy life. I don't know much about the decommunization of the Netherlands. I've read a few books about Greece and what we did there, and that was an American, wholly American thing. So there's a lot you can read about it here, and it's like, yeah, we just killed those people. As soon as the Germans stopped killing people, it's like, yep, kill the communists. It's like, wait, the Nazis were killing communists. It's like, yeah, we've taken their place. So because we love capitalism.
Okay, yeah. So Paul Verhoeven was born in 1938, so he does remember like bombs in World War II.
Yeah, he heard explosions in the distance, and he lived through the aftermath of like, we got to rebuild all this crap.
Yeah. Which is why, spoilers, but sometimes we'll get to Starship Troopers, and that's all commentary about fascism. It's not just kind of a goofy, violent sci-fi movie. It's actually a commentary on fascism, which I know now seems very obvious, but when I first saw it, I had no idea that that's what that was about. So.
Yeah, the book was too. Very loosely based on the book, but we'll cover it. I'll save it because I like Haldeman a lot too. So.
But yeah, this is it's still Paul Verhoeven still making a good movie. So interesting to see some of his back catalog stuff that I haven't seen before. So
the best movie was this considered like the best movie ever made in the Netherlands?
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know all
the best Dutch. Well, the public over there says it's the best Dutch film ever.
Oh, okay.
And it's been upvoted that way for the past like 12 years. Like, what's the best? It's the Titanic of Dutch films too, because of the cost of it.
Yeah.
Because they don't have this huge, vibrant like film industry where they make big budgeted, period pieces. They don't have the reputation. So.
Oh yeah, this movie had like a ton of. Because like if you look at the opening credits, there's like 40 different like
funding companies,
financiers, and like they all
dropped in massive lawsuits. It ran out of money halfway through, and people got sued, and
like
it was a complex story there.
Like Carice von Houten was was contracted to work on a play. And so she was over time at the movie, and so the theater sued and won the case for, which I don't know how much. Like, well, here's your $500. I don't know what happened there, but it's like
160,000 euros was actually the settlement.
That's decent. Oh, okay.
And that's back when euros made dollars look like pesos, so that was like $300,000. Now it's almost like reversed. It's like no, it's about $150,000, but at the time of the settlement, the euro was worth a lot more than the dollar.
Yeah. Well, if you like what you heard, and how couldn't you? You can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, you can rate us whatever you want. But remember, the only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm doesn't control you. We also have a listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support us a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. Cancel anytime. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube, American Greed Factory. You can watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we have t-shirts on belowthecollar.com belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. And I totally forgot, Nathan, what scene from this movie are we shoving into space?
Oh, where was this movie? The first scene with her in the hearse.
Okay.
Because it reflects everything about this movie. It's not what you think it is. It's kind of weird and cool at the same time.
And it's a deception.
And she looks like Morticia Addams, which is
Yeah.
like, wow, I didn't see that one coming.
So, goodbye, America.
Goodbye, America.
Goodbye, Netherlands.
Yes, we hope to hear from you soon and like positive things, because it's a cool place with lots of locks and dams.
Where's Amsterdam? Is that in the Netherlands?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know. Should I stop recording before we reveal our ignorance?